Chapter 1347, The Life Magnetic Field Rockets. Chapter 1347, The Life Magnetic Field Rockets, _ We had only its head here, and it could trouble people. It had made many experts lose their faces. Even the Godlord and Ming Hao were delivered to a place they didn't know. When its 11 clones gathered, who could resist it here? At this moment, many different energies in the chaotic space current rumbled and rolled violently. Countless clusters of light like light balls exploded and crushed everything like giant fireballs. The gusts brought extreme coldness, swarming over and attempting to freeze people and shatter them. The burning flames, which weren't weaker than heaven flames, connected to each other and created a sea of fire that appeared everywhere. De Carlos looked extremely grave. He closed his eyes, waves of space energy rippling from him. He was using his method to count the exact time when Huey's 11 clones came. Then, they could figure out a countermeasure. We have around 15 minutes. He opened his eyes, feeling so chilled. After 15 minutes, all clones of Hui will arrive. We have only 15 minutes to run away, fight against it, or find some strong reinforcements. Strong reinforcements? Azure Dragon gave a forced smile and sighed. The Godlord and Ming Hao have disappeared. What strong reinforcements could they find? We are no match for it. Xianhe released his soul consciousness to sense and his life power Upanishad to survey Huey's life magnetic field. His soul quivered as he felt that his hands were tied. Huey's life magnetic field was like an immense, shoreless sea of life. He believed that the combined life magnetic field of the Godlord and Ming Hao couldn't be compared to Huey's. He knew only Bloodthirsty, the one with the same strong life magnetic field. However, when Bloodthirsty was at his peak of power, his life magnetic field wasn't as condensed or as large as Huey's. Generally, the more surging the life magnetic field was, the stronger the soul was. It also meant that its life form was exquisite and profound. The life magnetic field of the experts, of course, was more sufficient than that of weaker warriors. Just like the God Power Ancient Tree, the life magnetic field was a criterion to assess an expert. When Xianhe was about to retrieve his soul consciousness, he was startled. His eyes were surprised when he turned to Shi, because he found another surging life magnetic field here besides Huey's. The sufficient level of that life magnetic field was even stronger than Azure Dragon, the ancestor of Heavenly Monster Tribe. That life magnetic field had reached an unimaginable level. It was almost as powerful as Bloodthirsty's that year. It was unbelievable. That life magnetic field came from Shi, a warrior at incipient God Realm, unexpectedly. It had turned a common understanding upside down. Xianhe was so astounded. Why is your life magnetic field suddenly immense and surging like that? Xianhe couldn't help but ask. Hearing him, many experts turned to look at Shi. At the moment, Shi became their focus. Right after that, Azure Dragon, Lady, Frederick, and even the 4 heavenly kings of the God Clan became stunned. They were the experts at the profound immortal God Realm. Their sensibility was extraordinary. If they could catch the mysterious energy from Hui, of course, they could see the magical change in Shiyan's body. When they found Shiyan's brimming life magnetic field, they gawked in thrill. No one knew what had happened to him. Then, Xianhe was shaken as he remembered what had just happened. He screamed, "We didn't recognize that the Godlord and Ming Hao had disappeared. How could you know that? How could you know Hui perhaps has delivered them to the sea domain of Nihility? How did you get all of this information? True. Are you a demon? How could you know everything?" Frederick also cried. While they were talking, they had to distract their mind to avoid the earth-destroying power from Hui. The fierce explosions and the formidable attacking shockwaves made the space current almost shatter. It looked like it was about to dissolve and go to the sea domain of Nihility. The 4 heavenly kings also studied Shi as they didn't have a clue. Right at this moment, a space slit flashed and then a group of people emerged. Adele? As soon as Xianhe saw her, he forgot that he had to interrogate Shi. He couldn't help but shiver, his archaic face filled with surprise. "Why are you here? Today, it's not safe at all. Why did you come here?" They were a group of 5 warriors from Imperial Dark Tribe led by the current chief, Adele. She was wearing an imperial orange dress, which made her noble and graceful. A stunning crystal crown topped her head like a lotus. However, her pretty face was filled with horror. While she was in the holy land of Imperial Dark Tribe, she felt strange commotions in the chaotic space basin. She also received the news that 11 alien worms were attacking 11-star areas. She then took her experts to come and see. As soon as she had arrived, she saw Xian He, Frederick, Azure Dragon, De Carlos, Lady, the 4 heavenly kings, the elders, and the chief of the 12 families from the God clan. Even if Adele was dumber, she surely knew something earth-shaking had happened in this turbulent area. The experts accompanied her included Gillette at the False Immortal Realm, 2 First Sky of Immortal Realm experts called Sarah and Fanao. The last one was Audrey. Audrey wore a green dress embroidered with many drawings of departed spirits on the hem. Her long dress fitted her beautiful body pretty well, exposing her slender legs. She had a high updo hair bun. Just like her mother, she was very elegant, noble, and proud. However, she also looked cold like a magnificent, icy flower on the snow mountain. She made people's hearts beat faster. She stood by Adele, her cold eyes sparkling with strange light. She suddenly turned to eye Shi Yin. Shi Yin beamed at her and bent his body. Long time no see. Audrey was a little hesitant, so she regarded him curtly. Yeah, long time no see. Congratulations on taking the new throne of the bloodthirsty force. I told my mother that you would succeed. Adele didn't appreciate Shi Yan's enthroning. She had a clear understanding of the bloodthirsty force. She knew her brother Ming Hao and her ex, Xian He. She knew what sorts of men they were. Thus, she didn't believe that Ming Hao and Xian He would let someone order them. At that time, Adele looked down on him and said that Shi Yin would never be able to enthrone because his realm was too low. He hadn't reached the immortal realm yet. If he could enthrone with his incipient god realm cultivation base, it was a humiliation. A humiliation to bloodthirsty. However, Audrey insisted that Shi Yin would succeed. She used to stand shoulder by shoulder with him, and she fought against others when they were on desolate. She had an unknown trust in Shi Yan's power and competence. Apparently, she had keen eyes. When Adele received the news that Shi Yin was the new master, she pulled a face as if she saw ghosts in broad daylight. Today, Adele brought the warriors of Imperial Dark Tribe here. After a glance at Shi Yin, she felt like she saw ghosts in daylight. She couldn't help but scream, You're at 3rd Sky of Incipient God Realm? Geez, what's going on? Recently, she got the news that Shi Yin had just reached 1st Sky of Incipient God Realm. It was after just a blink, and it was like Shi Yin had crossed a long distance. It was astounding indeed. Aside from her, when others thought about Shi Yan's breakthrough speed, they discolored in fear. Chapter 1348, That Power. Chapter 1348, That Power, _ While they were talking, we didn't stop its attack. This area was filled with explosions and world-destroying energy shockwaves. However, Xian He and the others were forcefully able to resist the energy attacks, and the 4 heavenly kings had protected the other low-realm warriors of the God clan. Now, Shi Yin had resumed his human form. His fearsome appearance changed after his thought changed. That form was the enhanced appearance of the immortal demon body. He could use it as he pleased. He could change his form with a flicker of his mind. The Imperial Dark experts coming had drawn the others' attention. The Imperial Dark experts searched through the crowd and gazed at Shi Yin. They were dumbstruck because of his 3rd Sky of Incipient God Realm cultivation base. We don't have much time. De Carlos' eyes were so worried. He felt as if someone had filled his heart with lead. It was ultimately heavy. Hearing him, people now pulled themselves together to see the current situation. They now observed Hui. The meat lumps on Huey's body twitched strangely. It looked like billions of small worms were moving to get rid of the planet-sized worm's body. And it happened that way. Boom, boom, boom. The meat lumps exploded and shot out cold, frigid bodies. They were the warriors who the worm had pulled. The worm had absorbed their vitality. They were dead for a long time. However, in this moment, their bodies had a strange energy that was cold and chill to bone. It felt like they were awakened demons. They all looked numb, and there was no emotion in their eyes. Some of them didn't even have enough limbs. There were several insufficient bodies like that with unknown energy moving in their bodies. They emerged on Huey's body and scattered. Frederick, are they corpse slaves that your corpse clan has tamed? Xianhe's face twitched as he turned to see Frederick, his eyes cold. No, Frederick wore a grave countenance as he was astounded. Our corpse slaves still have a weak beam of vitality. However, those people don't have a signal of life on them. They're utterly dead, but they have some sort of evil energy in their bodies. Pausing for a while, Frederick continued. Some of them have terrifying energy that isn't less than experts at the immortal realm. Shi Yin changed his visage slightly. Xianhe, what's going on? Adele's bold brows arched. She bit her succulent, red lips. After a flash, her sexy body appeared by Xianhe with the momentum of taking revenge. What the heck are you guys doing in the turbulent space current? Did you know about the catastrophic commotions in 11 star areas? Do you know how many people were killed? Adele and Xianhe used to be lovers. 10,000 years ago, they used to have had promises. After so many years, when she talked to Xianhe, she wasn't trying to be polite and elegant. It was just like the old days. Actually, it was a sign of a close relationship. Well, some people got killed. Not a big deal. Xianhe pouted his lips. If the clones of that thing gather, I'm not even sure if we can protect so many star areas in our cosmos. Hearing him, the experts of the Imperial Dark Tribe discolored in fear. They were aghast, though. Of course, they hadn't counted that it would be this serious. Audrey swiftly flashed her beautiful figure and reappeared by Shi Yin. Her pretty eyes rippled brightly. Is it really serious? Shi Yin looked at her, complimenting her refined glamour. His eyes scanned her perfectly proportional body. He gave a forced smile. You've fused with the God-blessed mainland. Use your origin to sense. Perhaps you can know how formidable that thing is. Audrey's beautiful eyes were deep. She felt slightly irritated because that man couldn't be serious even in such a situation. Women are sensitive. When his vulgar eyes raked through her body, she knew it. However, she couldn't reckon with it. Listening to him, Audrey focused on sensing. So many spirits were dangling in her soul altar. Beams of green flames danced and expanded like electric waves toward Hui. After a long time, her soft body shook hard, her beautiful face aghast. She couldn't help but scream. An absolute beginning creature. Her compatibility with the heaven flame approached almost Haig's level, which was one level higher than Shi Yan's. She had almost fused with it completely. After focusing on sensing, she got the information of Hui from the streak of a memory of her origin. It can destroy this entire world, hissed Shi Yin. Xianhe, where is Ming Hao? It's a critical time. How come he didn't come here? Adele was still interrogating Xianhe. Xianhe was always with ease and had a natural poise. He was a true hero, but whenever he faced Adele, he looked awkward as if his hands were tied. He gave her a forced smile. Ming Hao has disappeared with the Godlord unknowingly. He turned to Shi Yin, explaining. That kid said that Hui might take Ming Hao and the Godlord to the sea domain of Nihility. I don't know if it's true or not. Adele's phoenix eyes gazed at Shi Yin. Is it true? Audrey asked. I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. I can vaguely catch it, nodded Shi Yin. How did you sense it? Adele wasn't satisfied with his answer and continued asking. Shi Yin smiled, but he didn't explain in details. He didn't think that he should explain it to her, anyway. Since the Imperial Dark Tribe didn't declare their cooperation with Bloodthirsty Force, she didn't have any relationship with Shi Yin, so he didn't need to give her face. Kid, what's that attitude? Adele's beautiful face became cold. Her pretty eyes conveyed her murderous aura. Do you think you're the real master of the Bloodthirsty Force? Both Ming Hao and Xianhe have to be polite and respectful when they talk to me. Why are you so disrespectful? Ming Hao is your blood older brother, and Xianhe is your ex. Of course, they have to consider your feelings. Why do you matter to me? Yin snorted inwardly, his face cold. He didn't care about Adele's fuss. Then, he didn't give his good face to Audrey too. He kept silent and frowned. Xianhe, the one you've chosen doesn't have abilities, but his temperament isn't humble at all, eh? He disrespected the precursors like that. Do you need me to teach him? Adele hissed with a cold complexion. Mother, don't trouble them. Audrey begrudgingly told her to back off. Even you want to support that kid, don't you? It would have been okay if she didn't advise her mother. Adele became angrier and said with a stiff face, Gillette, teach him a lesson for me. Let him know that he shouldn't consider himself the new leader of Bloodthirsty Force. Let him see the truth. He's still far away from the day he can swagger around. Don't trouble us, Xianhe forced a smile. I want to make trouble, cried Adele. Being a member of Imperial Dark Tribe, Gillette couldn't go against Adele's orders. Even though he didn't want to do it, he had to fulfill her wish. Just like a dark shadow gliding away, he reappeared above Yan's head. He rose one hand and grabbed something. Many evil spirits shot out of his fingers. They wanted to lift Yan's soul altar out of his sea of consciousness. Now, the numb warriors that shot out of Huey's body had scattered and headed toward the God Warriors and Xianhe's team. However, Adele acted as if she didn't see them. She still wanted to teach Yan a lesson. Uncle Gillette, don't make more trouble. Audrey hurried to call after him. But it was too late. Adele wore an icy face while looking at Yan, then Xianhe. Yan wasn't sure she was mad at him or Xianhe. Anyway, she wanted to throw a tantrum. Gillette was unable to retreat. He begrudgingly took action. Strangely, as Gillette was attacking him, Yan just stood still. He lifted his head to look at the evil spirits aiming at his head. The strange light dots emerged in his pupils. He had a strange feeling now. Those evil spirits had the power to draw the soul. They could extract the host's soul from the soul altar. In fact, his host soul wanted to fly up. Once his host's soul was taken away from his soul altar, his life was going to be controlled. It wasn't a joke. Of course, he believed that Gillette wouldn't dare to harm him. However, as he pulled himself together to counterattack, the mutant soul consciousness that grumblingly swarmed toward the evil spirit Gillette had released like water overflowing a broken dam. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. All of a sudden, the evil spirits that Gillette had released were burned. His strange soul consciousness was like a shadow piercing through the spirits and aiming at Gillette's chest. His instinct made him frightened. He hurried to mobilize the defending energy. But then, he found that an invisible energy had quietly seeped into his body. He went numb. When he found something wrong, his body was invaded by that strange energy. His blood, flesh, God power, spirit, and soul were about to scatter. His body and soul altar was about to collapse or explode. His face became so ugly. He couldn't help but shout, "What kind of evil power is it?" He knew some energy was vandalizing his body, but he couldn't know what it was or locate it. It was like having someone using a sword to prick him, but he didn't know where it hurt or where the sword was. He only knew one thing. Your body and soul altar are being destroyed. Soon, you will be broken and perish. It was an unknown power that can collapse people's mind, but it was invisible and people couldn't recognize it. Azure Dragon's eyes brightened in the crowd. He screamed, Yin, show mercy. Yin was immersed in a magical power of his soul consciousness. Hearing him calling, he woke up. His thought flickered, and he retrieved his soul consciousness. Gillette recovered. He had cold sweat all over his body. When he looked at Yin, he thought he was watching a demon, his face ashen. Several seconds later, he was shaken hard. He couldn't help but scream, It's that power. The power Bloodthirsty controlled that year. Hearing him, all people including the God Clan's experts were dumbstruck. Chapter 1349, Mistress. Chapter 1349, Mistress. 10,000 years ago, many experts had besieged Bloodthirsty and made him return to Earth, leaving only a broken skeleton. The precursors of the God Clan, Heaven River Temple, Thousand Fantasy Sect, and Broken Hall had seized them. After 10,000 years, the experts of the God Clan and the warriors at the immortal realm like Ling Xiang, Caesar, and Lorraine had put their hopes in Bloodthirsty's remains. They wanted to discover the mysterious power. However, they all failed. In many people's eyes, that power was the foundation that helped Bloodthirsty become the supreme expert. Also, it was the primary reason that the God Lord and the other experts had to kill Bloodthirsty. Everybody wanted this power. Today, this power reappeared in the universe. Bloodthirsty's successor had triggered it. How could it not shake the entire world? Now, everybody looked at Shi Yin with hot eyes. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The corpses flew out of Huey's body, accelerated and flew like a shooting light. The three experts in the front of that horde had damaged bodies. No one knew how long they were there. They all had big holes in their chest where pungent, sticky pus oozed out. They could vaguely see their twitching stomachs that made their hearts cold and their scalps numb. The three corpses had blank looks without any human emotion. However, their bodies had a surging evil energy. Rhombus sword lights shot out from their mouths. The sword lights were so cold, but they were bright and transparent, stabbing into the chests of the three God Clan's elders. The three elders at the incipient God realm blacked out as they lost their lives without having a chance to scream. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless rhombus sword lights showered at them fiercely. The experts' eyes brightened, but they didn't have a chance to check Shi Yan's marvel. They had to urge their power Upanishads to shield them from the attack. Their god power created the sea or the ice mountain, the dazzling light of the sun and the moon, and even the thick blood streaming. Their magical abilities had made the space current magnificent, as if it had a beautiful firework performance. A handsome man emerged at the head of the giant worm. He smiled, his eyes dark and sinister. He was now quietly watching the others. Tianxia. Xian He, Frederick, and DeCarlo shouted at the same time. They were shaken hard as they couldn't believe it. Tianxia was the president of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. In this cosmos, his force was very powerful and it ranked right after the God Clan, Bloodthirsty Force, and Imperial Dark Tribe. And more importantly, the forces like Thousand Fantasy Sect, the Broken Hall, and Heaven River Temple listened to Tianxia. They would act under his command. The filthy rich president of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce appeared above Huey's head, and he was standing there safe and sound. Everybody had a bad premonition. They knew that this situation was indeed strange and dangerous. Even the four heavenly kings of the God Clan had to knit their brows, especially Heavenly King Divine Marshal. He looked at Tianxia, his eyes restless and frightened. He suddenly cried, "No, it's not right. You weren't this strong." Just previously, he had received the God Lord's orders to visit the headquarters of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce to meet Tianxia and persuade him to stand on the God Clan's side. Of course, Tianxia didn't agree. Because of that, Divine Marshal made an excuse to fight against Tianxia once. At that time, Tianxia was at second sky of Immortal Realm and was cultivating firepower Upanishad. He wasn't weaker than Divine Marshal. Their match ended with a tie. However, Tianxia had sent shivers down Divine Marshal's spine. It was a chill from the soul. He knew Tianxia was much stronger compared to how he was at that battle. If they fought against Tianxia today, he knew he would be defeated and he wouldn't even be able to run away. He could feel that the aura from Tianxia now was similar to when he faced the God Lord. "Ladies and gentlemen, long time no see." Tianxia smiled gently, his makings excellent. "Welcome to this humble place. I, Tianxia, on behalf of my mistress, send our best regards to you." A beautiful figure appeared behind Tianxia. Unexpectedly, it was Ziyao. She was sitting on a brilliant seven-colored throne that was made of precious jades and crystals. She sat cross-legged on the throne, her face indifferent and arrogant while she looking at the others. After she had emerged, Tianxia bowed to her modestly and introduced her to the others. "This is my mistress." After Ziyao and Tianxia showed themselves, the fierce corpses halted and stiffly floated around the others. They were looking at their targets with blank eyes. "Tianxia, what the heck you are doing?" Xian He grimaced, trying to suppress his anger. he shouted. Since when did she become your mistress? You're the president of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce, but now you're kneeling under a woman. Since when did you, Tianxia, become so shameless? It was also what others couldn't figure out. Mistress was always my mistress. It has never changed. It's Tianxia's honor to become her servant. Also, Mistress has created me and made me who I am today. Tianxia smiled and didn't cease. In front of many people, he sounded so proud as he didn't think it was humiliating. He thought it was honorable. People then turned to look at Ziyao. Most of them were bewildered, frowning, and trying to guess Ziyao's identity. Not many people in this group knew Ziyao. Only Xin He and Frederick knew that Shi Yin had a woman like that on his side. However, since when did that woman had become Tianxia's mistress? They had no clue. She's that big worm, hissed Audrey all of a sudden. Is she that worm? Adele couldn't make head or tail out of it. How could it be? She's so beautiful. How could she be that disgusting worm? It's her. Audrey took a cold breath, her high breast thrusting out and making her more gorgeous and elegant. I've fused with the origin of our homeland. It has the memories. The aura on her body is exactly like that big worm. She's an absolute beginning creature. Hearing him, the others were stunned. Quickly, they turned stern. Kid, is she telling the truth? Frederick glared at Shi Yin, his face dark and serious. The light in his eyes flickered furiously. Shi Yin sighed and nodded. Audrey is telling the truth. Ziyao is Hui, actually. While he was talking, Ziyao didn't pay attention to the others. Her beautiful eyes were filled with a strange light as she eyed Shi Yin from a distance. Her emotionless face slightly changed and showed a gleam of complex emotion. Shi Yin felt bitter. He understood that Ziyao had controlled the entire situation. Tianxia and so many corpses had given her full assurance. He knew that he had been tender-hearted for a while, which gave her time to plan and overturn the situation. Wetterson, the only person who could hurt her, was dead because of his exhausted life energy. The Godlord and Ming Hao, who could threaten her, were delivered to the sea domain of Nihility. Also, her clones were coming here at fast speed. Who could stop her now? Tianxia, what happened after all? Xin He shouted. Tianxia's smile was warm. He shrugged relaxedly. Mistress is like desolate and devour. They are the creatures from the absolute beginning era. They were the very first creatures in this universe. It's not something that low creatures like you could understand. Mistress needs your power to recover. Mistress wants to destroy desolate and desolate's incipient extent, which is also the universe you're dwelling in. It's simple like that. The members of the God Clan didn't have many emotions when they heard it from Tianxia because the Godlord had told them beforehand. They knew that secret. However, Shi Yin, Xin He, Adele, and Azure Dragon were greatly shocked as if a lightning bolt had just struck their heads. They felt a little dizzy. The cosmos they were dwelling in was just desolate's incipient. Desolate had created their world. This heavy bomb had destroyed their minds and left them baffled and sinking into extreme fear. The world we're living in is just desolate's incipient extent. So how about us? We are just low creatures? Xin He mumbled as if he had lost his mind. The others weren't much different from him. All felt like collapsing. Only Shi Yin could calm down quickly. He had a marvelous feeling that nothing could compare to. What Tianxia said had enlightened him. He recognized the truth now. Until now, he was still doubtful. He doubted everything since his own incipient extent was expanding to a vast sea of stars. He had just used the soul consciousness to check it thoroughly. He found that the suns, moon, stars, mountains and rivers and even weathers in his incipient extent were very similar to their kind. While his soul and body had been transformed, his incipient extent had changed too. Besides the creatures from different races, his incipient extent was similar to the cosmos he was living in now. He could create the skies or the sea of stars. So could Desolate. He believed in what Tianxia said almost immediately. Desolate created you all. Oh no. To be exact, the four limbs of Desolate did that. Grace Mainland, God-blessed Mainland, Ancient God Continent, and Ancient Demon Continent were parts of Desolate. They were detached because Desolate got hurt. Tianxia turned around and found Ziyao indifferent. She didn't look offended, nor was she losing her interest. Thus, Tianxia continued explaining with ease. Everybody was immersed in the effect of Tianxia's words. Her 11 clones will arrive soon. Do you still want to listen to him? De Carlos gritted his teeth, then shouted all of a sudden. Everybody was shaken hard. They pulled themselves together. They understood that Ziyao didn't need to be hurried now. In fact, they should be the ones who were hurrying. Once her clones gathered, who could be lucky enough to escape this area? Ziyao's eyes had a mocking light. She looked at De Carlos from a distance, as if she wasn't afraid that he could make anything different. With Tianxia here and Wetterson was dead and the Godlord and Minghao disappeared, she thought that only the host soul here was enough to threaten everybody else. We're going to offer you an exit, Tianxia smiled and suggested seriously. All of you give away a flow of your soul seal. Be subdued. Worship my mistress as your master. My mistress will bestow you with power. You can then return to Desolate's incipient extent to work. That's how you can save your life. Chapter 1350, The 12-Headed Serpent. Chapter 1350, The 12-Headed Serpent _ Tianxia gave his suggestion with a smile. Everybody put on a heavy complexion. When they looked at Tianxia, their eyes were piercing as they hated that they couldn't crush his bones into powder. Ziyao was sitting on a 7-colored crystal throne. She observed people with her cold, arrogant eyes. She didn't put anyone into her eyes. It seemed like letting Tianxia negotiate with them was already her showing great mercy. Xinhe, is this person that powerful? As Adele had just arrived, she didn't know much about the absolute beginning creatures. She arched her brows and looked at them in disdain. Will she be able to kill all of us? She just has a big body. Except for that, how strong is she? Mother, Audrey hissed, her elegant face filled with fear. She's really formidable. Audrey had fused with the origin of God-blessed mainland. From her soul seal, she knew that Hui was very intimidating. She knew the level of this absolute beginning creature. She knew that its realm was beyond them, and she explained bitterly. If you want to compare, it's like comparing our 4 great creatures with the human clan or the man clan. There's a large gap in the level of living forms that will never be crossed. Adele finally changed her visage. Our clan serves only one master, snorted a white-bearded elder of the Elder Committee. Tianxia, you're too innocent when you ask us to worship an unknown monster like that. You must have lost your mind, or that thing must have eaten your brains. That elder was at second sky of incipient god realm and was cultivating wind power. He was always an arrogant one. In the past 10,000 years in this vast cosmos, the God Clan was the overlord. Bloodthirsty Force, Heavenly Monster Tribe, and Imperial Dark Tribe had been secluding. They didn't dare to face the God Clan directly. As they had conquered so many star areas, they had formed their proud and overbearing characteristics. How could they allow someone to ride on their heads? In this elder's eyes, Tianxia was just like a dog that barked at others based on his master's power. He wanted to use the threat from this absolute beginning create so Tsunami Chamber of Commerce could replace the God Clan to be the overlord. They would never allow that. Ziyao looked indifferently. From a distance, she frowned at that elder. Tianxia chuckled. He understood his master's idea. His power changed and an evil light radiated from his eyes. That light had a beautiful red-violet hue, shooting like a meteor, aimed at that elder. Shi Yan's heart sank. He was frightened when he looked at that shooting star. Unexpectedly, that bunch of light had the power that could be compared to the Godlord or Ming Hao. Although it wasn't the mysterious power that Shi Yan had just acquired today, it was also strange and intimidating. It seemed to be able to cross the spaces too. The 2 Heavenly King Carefree and Divine Marshal of the God Clan were standing near that elder. Seeing Tianxia take action, they just sneered and urged their powers. However, that elder screeched when they hadn't triggered their power yet. A bleeding hole appeared in his chest. His internal organs like lungs and hearts were stirred into a pulp. Blood gushed out of the wound like a rapid stream. Flowing with the blood was his life. That red-violet meteor had appeared right behind his back after abnormally crossing the space. It had hurt him in just a blink of an eye. He vomited thick blood. His life magnetic field slowly exhausted. His soul altar and sea of consciousness collapsed. Before he died, the surprised look was still on his face when he looked at Carefree and Divine Marshal, as if he doubted why the two heavenly kings didn't help him. He didn't know that Divine Marshal and Carefree were urging their powers. It was just that the meteor was so fast. While they were still gathering their energy, it killed the Elder. The light that shot out from Tianxia's eyes had killed an Elder right in front of Carefree and Divine Marshal. The four heavenly kings were enraged. Then, the four heavenly kings Carefree, Divine Marshal, Easygoing, and Light all stormed toward Tianxia without talking a word. They were as fast as lightning. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The cold and stiff bodies of the dead warriors shielded Tianxia. Those warriors had blank looks on their cold faces. They all spurted some sort of dark gas that carried chaotic magnetic fields of outer space, driving the evil, unknown energies inside the turbulent space current. Some corpses had the aura of the immortal realm. If they still had the aura, they could still use the power Upanishads. The ice wall, ice sabers, sea of fire, and wild lightning multiplied forcefully and created a fearful, endless intimidation. Even the four great heavenly kings struggled a lot, and they couldn't create any threat to Tianxia. The smile on Tianxia's face didn't cease. He stood humbly and respectfully under Ziyao's throne. He spoke to the others again. "We gave you guys a chance. It's you who can catch it or not. If we can't resist, we should go early." At this moment, DeCarlo sighed and suggested, his face heavy. People didn't get his idea. "If we don't go now, we won't be able to flee anymore when her 11 clones come." DeCarlos's eyes were dark as he said helplessly, "She's too powerful." Before this, her clones were in different areas inside the chaotic space basin to draw the energy from warriors who accidentally fell into this place. Today, she's still recovering. She still needs a lot to be in her supreme condition. Thus, she had to step back when Wetterson attacked her. She also delivered the Godlord and Ming Hao away. Even she isn't in her best condition, we can't resist her. When her 11 clones gather, even the Godlord and Ming Hao won't be able to do anything. Is she that dangerous? Adele's pretty face paled. As the matriarch of Imperial Dark Tribe, there weren't many things that could scare her. She was calm even when she had to face the Godlord. She wasn't really afraid of him. However, listening to DeCarlos talking about how intimidating Hui was today, it was the first time she knew that in this immensely vast universe, the Godlord and Ming Hao weren't the ones with the highest realm. The absolute beginning creatures were the true existences atop the pyramid of creatures. In the eyes of those absolute creatures, all of them were just vulnerable ants. "All right, you should open the space passage now." He made a quick decision after pondering for a few seconds. DeCarlos didn't talk more. Filled with regret, he urged his power Upanishad to force a space passage. Right at this moment, Yin saw Ziyao looking at them. He suddenly had a chill in his heart. He could see a gleam of mocking in her eyes. It was the glimpse of not giving a damn because she knew that she would definitely win. It was the calmness that she had as she knew she had everything in control. "Don't stir up the space energy fluctuations." Yin screamed as he felt that something would go wrong. He wanted to stop him. However, he was one step late. DeCarlos urged his power Upanishad and used his soul consciousness to connect to space. However, while doing so, he found an unknown energy pour into space. The commotions his soul consciousness had given way for that mysterious energy to intrude his sea of consciousness. Instantly, he felt tens of thousands of swords stabbing his sea of consciousness. His sea of consciousness was damaged badly. Even his soul altar had cracks. At that glimpse of time, his soul was hurt. Tui. DeCarlos was ashen when he spurted out blood. He looked frightened when he turned to Ziyao, the one who looked indifferent and emotionless. He clutched his chest and said desperately, "She has used that energy to affect space. I can't tear space. My soul got hurt." His body looked like a smashed mirror with so many cracks where blood oozed out. It looked like a cloth soaked in blood, and someone was squeezing it. The expert at Second Sky of Immortal Realm cultivating space power, Upanishad couldn't escape. Someone had ambushed him and damaged him severely. De Carlos was known as the toughest target to be murdered. People even guessed that even Godlord and Ming Hao couldn't escape as fast as De Carlos. There were times when he was considered the toughest warrior to deal with. However, today, he got hurt, and the two who could compare to him were delivered to somewhere no one knew. His wounds were like a hammer pounding on people's chests. Everybody felt a great shock. At this moment, the first clone of the giant worm came on the wave. While the space waves rippled, it merged with Huey's body. People screamed ear-piercingly as the other clones of the worm emerged continuously and merged with the host body. After the 11 clones had combined with the host body, people saw that the giant worm's volume now increased 10 times. Its shape also changed. It wasn't a big worm anymore. Now, it was a 12-headed giant serpent. Huey's real body was a formidable 12-headed giant serpent. The snake had a dark blue body with many complex patterns. Those patterns were hiding the mysteries of the universe. The 12-headed serpent gave people a strange but perfectly beautiful impression. It looked like a masterpiece of the creator. The head in the middle of the 12 heads wore a magnificent imperial crown. That was her main brain. At this moment, Ziyao was sitting on that exquisite 7-colored crown. She looked even more mesmerizing. Her body had all the features of a charming, sexy, and gorgeous lady. Her attractiveness shook even the soul magnetic field. Even the top warriors like the 4 heavenly kings, Xian He, Azure Dragon, and Adele, a woman, were charmed. They looked puzzled and passionate as if they were enchanted. Her charm had affected both male and female warriors. It was at an unimaginable level. Tianxia was on one knee, his face modest and respectful. It looked like her glamour had frozen his heart. He knew that Ziyao was in her most terrifying condition now. Her aura had threatened him and made him fearful instinctively. He quivered and didn't dare to stand upright. As the other top warriors were gazing at her, Ziyao's pretty eyes shined more as if they were emitting a pink halo that could absorb the soul. Her eyes raked through the crowd and fixed on Shi Yan. Her lips parted and a gentle, soft voice arose in Shi Yan's head. "Come to me." Shi Yan was standing by Audrey. His eyes became misty and he started to walk toward her. However, he suddenly shook on the way as if he had just awakened. He was frightened. He directly turned around and retreated without saying a word. He was walking determinedly away from her. Chapter 1351. A Bloody Battle. Chapter 1351. A Bloody Battle _ Now, all the warriors inside the chaotic space basin were enchanted. They looked as if they had lost their minds. Both male and female warriors had their minds occupied by Ziyao's charming glamour. It was a charming evil power that couldn't be described. It struck people's host soul and sea of consciousness directly. They were affected and were unable to resist. Shi Yan was panic-stricken. He didn't dare to stop, turning around and walking away with a resolute face. If the Origin's fluctuation in his head hadn't touched him, and if he hadn't been able to see that mysterious power, his soul altar would have been invaded too. He could clearly see that Ziyao had used the invisible power to release her tremendous soul consciousness and intrude people's heads, enticing their host souls and puzzling them all. In this crowd, only he had touched that magical power. He had recognized the evil attack, so he was able to retreat timely. He didn't dare to linger. While backing off, his co-soul was creating a connection with Grace Mainland. He wanted to use the soul consciousness to create a space passage. Swish! A brilliant door like a galaxy appeared behind him. Inside the door, there was a vague glimpse of the immense, endless sea. As the owner of Grace Mainland, no matter where he was, he could return to the planet in any minute. It was a unique supernatural power of the warriors fused with the Origins. Anyway, Song Yun and Audrey had low levels, and they didn't know space power Upanishad, so they couldn't do that. However, Shi Yan knew the Godlord could do that. He wondered if the God Lord had seized the chance to return to ancient God continent or not. As the warriors here were enchanted, they were going to fall into terrible danger. Shi Yin understood that at his realm and cultivation base, even though he had understood that mysterious power, he couldn't overturn the whole situation here. Moreover, in this horde of people, he had only cared about Ziyao. However, Ziyao was the ringleader of all of this. It was truly a joke of the Creator. He wanted to avoid the danger for now. After he had opened the door, he was about to flee to Grace Mainland. The halo in Ziyao's eyes revolved. She looked at him in the distance, her face surprised. She was curious as to how he was able to get rid of the soul enchantment. He could back off resolutely, though. After the true body of the giant serpent was reunited, Ziyao had always been emotionless. But now, she changed. She looked excited as if she had finally become a real creature, lively and emotional. Seeing Shi Yin want to leave, she sent him another message. Why do you need to leave? Will I eat you? There are so many people here, but I won't kill you. Only you. Can't you stay with me? Her voice and her soul energy fluctuation were identical to the real Ziyao. It felt like her soul and consciousness had returned to her. However, Shi Yin didn't dare to buy it. He didn't answer, shutting off his sea of consciousness and keeping silent. He attempted to run away. Ziyao's beautiful eyes became cold. She snorted, and her snort seemed to carry endless evil energy that could change space energy fluctuations. The light door that Shi Yin had just created was sealed by layers of light. The glimpse of the endless sea behind the door faded. You don't know what's good for you. Ziyao looked unhappy. Tianxia's face was cold and dark. He turned into a rainbow light without waiting for Ziyao's orders. He glided through the group of God Clan's experts and Xian he to reach Shi Yin in order to capture him. Shi Yin was frightened. He finally pulled himself together at the critical moment. Flows of thought crossed his head continuously. He recognized that by himself, surviving would be tough. At this moment, Ziyao was so strange and evil. No one could counter her single-handedly. If he wanted to get rid of Ziyao, he had to make everything chaotic. He needed more people. He made up his mind as soon as this thought arose in his head. He touched his glabella. His soul consciousness changed and rippled like invisible water waves. His soul consciousness was equipped with something cold and clear that was specified to refine the souls and awaken the minds. The power he got was exactly like Ziyao's. It was the power that only the absolute beginning creatures could control. Just like he guessed, this magical power worked. The soul consciousness with the freezing energy seeped into Audrey's soul altar, who was standing closest to him. Audrey was startled. She was awakened. Her graceful body quivered slightly as she screamed. What happened? His soul consciousness expanded rapidly. Soon, Xian He, Adele, and Frederick were awakened. He had also woken up the God Clan's experts. They all changed their countenances and gathered energy to create a seal and barrier to protect their soul altars. They knew that Ziyao had just occupied their minds. This time, they learned their lesson. All tried to cover their sea of consciousness and soul altar to prevent their souls from being invaded one more time. Shi Yin, what happened? Audrey woke up first. Shi Yin was the first one she saw. She was smart enough to figure out that Shi Yin was the one who had saved them. Tianxia, you're crazy. Xian He sneered, turning into a long blood river and shooting toward Tianxia. At this moment, Tianxia wanted to capture Shi Yin. Xian He found that only Shi Yin could break Ziyao's soul enchantment. He knew that if they got Shi Yin, they wouldn't have a chance to resist. Thus, he urged all of his power to help Shi Yin. Many people understood this too. Frederick, Lady, and Azure Dragon were touched. They gathered around Shi Yin to prevent Tianxia from approaching and controlling Shi Yin. Protect that kid. Adele was bewildered for a while before she could get a hold of herself. She screamed her order. The Imperial Dark Tribe's warriors moved and surrounded Shi Yin. Together with Xian He, they created a pressure on Tianxia. The rainbow light around Tianxia stretched endlessly. His beams of light twittered strangely as if they were insects communicating with each other. Those outer space divine lights were exactly what Ziyao had controlled. Their auras were similar to the Origin's heaven flames. They were much more powerful and mysterious than the God Clan's light power Upanishad. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Xianhe's eyes turned crimson. The viscous blood rivers flew out of his eyes and aligned with each other. The thick smell of blood emitted. The blood rivers bubbled torrentially. Whenever one bubble burst off, it sent a flow of blood chi. The blood chi gathered and condensed, creating a blood dragon. It had a quiet aura with a momentum that could deliver all the creatures to death. The vitality rose from deep inside the blood rivers. The death and life didn't attack each other, but life power had triggered death power and increased the death magnetic field to the acme. The endless rainbow light Tianxia had released was covered in Xianhe's blood river. Tianxia's face didn't change as he spoke faintly. Xianhe, our power were equal, but now you're far behind me. The rainbow lights were like dragons that struggled in the deep abyss, trying to move through the blood river and head to Shi. Tui. Xianhe spurted blood. His blood condensed in the air and created a blood drill that was crystal and sparkling. The life energy emitted immensely from the drill. Blood sacrifice. Xianhe gave a low-pitched soul. The blood river was like a boiling pot or a lava pond with so many bursting blood bubbles. A red blood with a dense, murderous aura in the eyes emerged. The dragon had formidable life energy that then shot out of the blood river, roaring inaudibly and heading to bite Tianxia. Tianxia wasn't affected. His energy fluctuated, and then he exploded into countless light dots and vanished. He conjured up behind Shi and raised his hand to grab Shi. Go. Shi was still calm. He sprayed a mouthful of blood on his bloody sword. Instantly, all the eyes on the sword opened. They became like evil insects that crawled on the sword and enhanced it. It turned into a sharp beam of blood and directly stabbed Tianxia. After his life form was greatly transformed, his blood wasn't the immortal demon blood anymore. It was something with different magical abilities that he couldn't figure out yet. His blood now carried the unknown power, which made his aura and energy one level more powerful than the immortal demon blood. It was like the difference between the human blood and the immortal demon blood. It had more features that he hadn't studied yet. Thus, when the bloody eyes opened, his energy rocketed instantly. Boom! An earth-shaking explosion arose. The blood sword turned into a blood eye and hit Tianxia's chest hard. Tianxia's bones exploded. He didn't look calm and relaxed anymore. Looking at the massive eye on his chest, he was astounded. Flesh armor. Shi cried inwardly. The bloody shield was like a strange flower blooming on his body that him quickly. While his soul consciousness changed, he transformed into a body he had just evolved. Fearsome spikes appeared. His back cracked and a pair of massive bone wings jutted out from the cracks. His claws grew as sharp as a saber. The blood in his body was now like a strong wine burning that gave him a flow of earth-destroying energy and wildly ran through his veins. The blood, flesh, bones, and even his internal organs were surging continuously. At this moment, Shi had confidence that he could resist the immortal realm expert. The blood eye on Tianxia's chest glowed in an evil blood light, which was like the spikes of a hedgehog thrusting into Tianxia's chest. Tianxia couldn't help but scream in pain. He changed his visage and shouted, I didn't expect that your life form would reach Bloodthirsty's level by now. Well done. You're worthy of being his successor. Thump, thump, thump. Tianxia's heart beat frantically like a planet explosion. The surging energy he had could compare to the expert at third sky of a mortal realm. The blood eye directly pushed away like a rubber ball. The formidable energy came like a seething sea and followed the blood eye to cover Shi. At this moment, the threat that Tianxia was booming could compare to Brian the Godlord or the Soul Control Chief Ming Hao. It was really tremendous. How dare you? Frederick, Lady, and Azure Dragon roared at the same time. They took action immediately and released magical power. Ziyao observed everything from her throne above the imperial crown on Huey's host head. Her beautiful eyes gazed at Shi. Her hands balled into fists. She looked touched. It seemed like Shi in his new fighting form with the mysterious energy had made her recall something. Chapter 1352, Causes and Effects. Chapter 1352, Causes and Effects. Understrian Xie had eaten Caesar, Ling Xiang, and Lorraine in the secret subterranean palace of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce to increase his realm and power. He was now as strong as the God Lord or Ming Hao. The power he was performing at wasn't ordinary at all. No one was going to successfully be able to deal with Tian Xie single-handedly. However, Frederick, Lady, and Azure Dragon had joined hands with Xian He, so even if Tian Xie had earth-shaking power, he would still have to struggle. Tian Xie, you discreetly cooperate with the alien to plot against our world. You deserve 1,000 deaths. Lady thundered. Countless beams of lightning bolts and balls shelled on Tian Xie unceasingly. Ridiculous. Tian Xie pouted his lips and said coldly, I'm not from your world. My mistress created me just like how Desolate created Bloodthirsty. I entered your world, Desolate's incipient extent, to prepare to wake up the mistress. Hearing him, everybody was shocked. Their eyes showed their astonishment. What Tian Xie had just told them was so frightening. Until now, Bloodthirsty's identity was still a mystery that many people had tried to discover for a long time in vain. Tian Xie said that Desolate had created Bloodthirsty. How could that be? Boom, boom, boom. The rainbow lights shot out of Tian Xie's body and smashed the lightning balls that Lady had created. He said with a ferocious face, So? You don't believe me? Can't you reason it? At this moment, Xian He and Frederick had gathered by Shi Yin and used their best abilities to protect him from harm. They all recognized that Ziyao could use that mysterious power evilly to seep into people's soul altars to snatch their minds in just a blink of an eye. Only Shi Yin, the other person who had such a power, could restore their sound minds. Thus, Shi Yin being safe and sound would be the key to this battle. He was the effective shield that they could use to resist Ziyao. If you said that Devour had created Bloodthirsty, we could have bought it. At this moment, Shi Yan's face was cold and stern. The blood armor fitted his body well. It looked like he got a peculiar red flower bloom on his chest. A pair of bone wings flapped behind his back. The energy rising in his body could smash the whole world. The bloody eyes that transformed from the blood sword quietly appeared above his head. The blood light sparkled in the bloody eyes, continuously releasing evil energy that could affect people's sea of consciousness. Audrey's beautiful eyes showed her unknown fear. She gazed at him, her lips slightly parting. Apparently, she was horror-struck. Adele, her mother, and the warriors of Imperial Dark Tribe were also fearful and strangely looking at Shi Yin. They had never seen Shi Yan's body after the recent transformation. At this moment, they were shaken hard. All felt insecure. The surging life magnetic field from his body was so immense that they had subdued the others. They felt so dispirited that they had no way to resist. It was like when they faced Bloodthirsty that year. It was like a low-level creature seeing a high-level creature for the first time. It would instinctively recognize the difference. Xian He, Frederick, and Azure Dragon stopped attacking Tian Xie. They wore a serious face. Their eyes sparkled as they were waiting for Tian Xie to explain further. As the leaders of the Bloodthirsty force, Xian He and Frederick didn't know Bloodthirsty's identity. Previously, Ming Hao had guessed that Bloodthirsty was the combination of the bloodlines from the four great creatures. However, it was just his improving guess. Tian Xie had a close relationship with Hui. As Hui was one of the absolute beginning creatures, it must have told Tian Xie a lot of information of that era. They had a premonition that Tian Xie would tell them the truth about Bloodthirsty's identity. Tian Xie turned his head around and looked at Ziyao to ask for her opinion. Ziyao nodded arrogantly. Tian Xie respectfully bowed to her. Then, he turned around and smiled relaxedly. Desolate was hurt severely. Its body was divided into 5 parts. Desolate was the brain. Grace Mainland, God-blessed Mainland, Ancient God Continent, and Ancient Demon Continent are the 4 clones, the 4 individuals. Each of these 4 individuals has respectively created the God Clan, Immortal Demon Clan, Heavenly Monster Tribe, and Imperial Dark Tribe. 10,000 years ago, the precursors of the 4 great races had entered Desolate and tried to tame it. Actually, It was the operation of the 4 clones in an attempt to replace the brain. They failed in the end. Many years later, the 4 clones of Desolate have begun to fight against each other. They have stimulated the 4 great creatures to fight inside Desolate's incipient extent. They want to turn this place into an unceasing war that would shatter the star areas. It would make the incipient extent heavier and lengthen the time to awaken the brain. This time, everybody focused on listening to Tianxia. No one took action, because what Tianxia was talking about related to the mysteries and variables of this world. These things had troubled them for countless years. Everybody wanted to know the causes. The other 4 had failed 10,000 years ago. Desolate killed them all. Desolate then recognized that if it continued to let the 4 clones act rashly, something would happen and Desolate wouldn't be able to control it. It then used the blood of the 4 precursors to create Bloodthirsty. Bloodthirsty's blood carried the advantages of the 4 great creatures, which was close to the perfect blood of the creatures in the absolute beginning era. Desolate created Bloodthirsty because it wanted to use Bloodthirsty to destroy the 4 great clans. It wanted to use Bloodthirsty to merge the clones with the host brain to finally awaken it. Unfortunately, while Desolate was imparting the power Upanishads to Bloodthirsty, the one who had just gained the consciousness, Devour, attacked them. Devour is the sea of blood, the holy land of the bloodthirsty force. It appears as a dark abyss. It's also one of the absolute beginning creatures and is Desolate's archenemy. Devour had seized the chance when Desolate was weakened after creating Bloodthirsty to give Bloodthirsty its power Upanishad. Devour's main power Upanishad is devouring. With the 8 great evil power Upanishads, Devour wanted to use Bloodthirsty to destroy the creatures and Desolate's incipient extent. Bloodthirsty was the key to the battle that occurred billions of years between Desolate and Devour. Desolate wanted to use Bloodthirsty to reunite the host brain and the clones to wake up. However, Devour had ambushed them. Devour had given Bloodthirsty's its power Upanishads too. Desolate's training and Devour's power Upanishads had made Bloodthirsty appear like lightning that crossed the skies and surpassed the 4 great creatures. Right at the beginning, Bloodthirsty had slaughtered people everywhere and killed so many. With devouring power Upanishad, he had accumulated energy and reached an extremely supreme level. Bloodthirsty was so talented. After that, without a teacher, he could still perceive and control the dark energy that only the creatures from the absolute beginning era could. Slowly, he recognized the meaning of his existence. He realized that he was just a key in the battle between Desolate and Devour. Thus, Bloodthirsty became unusual in the later stage. He didn't kill anymore but began to enroll disciples and created his force. He wanted to rebel against everything. In his final stage, Bloodthirsty had surpassed the immortal realm. He had become a creature that could compare to the creatures from the absolute beginning era. He wanted to get rid of Desolate's and Devour's arrangement. He wanted to fly out of this universe. However, Devour had confined him. In the end, he had a battle with Devour. Although he had hurt Devour, he was damaged too. While he was so feeble, Desolate attacked him. Desolate had made the God Lord join hands with many experts to destroy him completely. After 100,000 years, Bloodthirsty was the first expert in this incipient extent to surpass everything to swagger in the sea of stars. He had learned the dark energy. He got the ability to destroy this world entirely. If his fate didn't end here, he would have succeeded. Tianxia turned about and gave Ziyao a respectful look. He turned to the others and continued, "My mistress had received the worst damage. She couldn't compete with Desolate and Devour right from the start. However, she had seized the chance when Desolate and Devour had fought against each other for billions of years without a break, and the existence of Bloodthirsty had damaged both Desolate and Devour to make them dormant. Thus, in this vast universe today, my mistress is the true expert. As long as you serve my mistress, she will forgive you for trespassing her. You guys could detach from this world." Billions of years had passed and Desolate and Devour have been fighting unceasingly? How could they do that? Frederick was surprised. Tianxia gave a disdainful smile. "Your bloodthirsty force's holy land is a dark abyss. It's Devour's consciousness. It's just like how you used your soul consciousness to intrude Xian's incipient extent to mess it up and destroy it. Do you get it now? Frederick sounded astounded. The dark abyss of our bloodthirsty force is the condensation of Devour's soul consciousness? Devour has intruded Desolate's incipient extent from another universe? Right. Each of the battles at their level could last for billions of years. Well, I can say it like this. They were engaged in a battle until now. Their methods of battling are something that we will never understand. Bloodthirsty was just a small piece of music in their fight, explained Tianxia. Everybody was frightened. Come to think about this, the dark abyss, which was Devour's soul consciousness, had intruded Desolate's incipient extent. The two creatures that no one knew how long had existed fought against each other for countless years. And the warriors here were just the tiny creatures dwelling inside Desolate's incipient extent. It was possible that when the absolute beginning creatures like Desolate or Devour looked at them, they thought that they were looking at some insects or ants inside their incipient extent. It was a bomb that exploded their minds. Tianxia had explained it to them simply and frankly. Yin understood it well. While his mind changed, his soul consciousness was moving through the galaxy-like incipient extent. He was gliding through many star areas. His face now held a forced smile. If he was just a raindrop or a small insect in someone's incipient extent, and that person could see every act of his, how sorrowful should he be? No wonder Bloodthirsty had risked his life to rebel and get rid of everything. He wanted to break this cage. Unfortunately, Desolate had created Bloodthirsty. It was his most terrible misery and also the reason why he failed. Just like today, he had fused with Grace Mainland and was able to observe the commotions of every creature on Grace Mainland. He had the ability to control the members of Heavenly Monster Tribe. It was because he hadn't fused completely with Grace Mainland. If he had utterly fused with Grace Mainland's origin, he could be like the God Lord who could control the life of each member of Heavenly Monster Tribe. Yin was finally awakened. Completely awakened. Finally, he knew why before Bloodthirsty lost his life and why his last words were to ask Xian He, Xian Shan, and Lao Luo to find the successors in another universe. It was because only the souls from other universes could ignore the principles and rules of fate in this universe. They could break the cage without fearing for Desolate's terrifying ability to control people's lives. Chapter 1353, The Sea Domain of Nihility. Chapter 1353, The Sea Domain of Nihility. After Tianxia had finished, everybody sank into silence for a long time and immersed in absolute fear. Sitting on the crown on the main head of Hui, Ziyao observed people from her high level. She looked calm and relaxed as if she had controlled everything in her hands. She let Tianxia tell the others the truth to break their mind's defense. As long as they could recognize their sorrow, they wouldn't have the thought of depending on Desolate and this world. That was how she could subdue them and make them work for her. With those top experts, she could fulfill the secret operation she had planned for so many years. Infused with Desolate. At this moment, everybody received a hard shock hitting their souls. They felt dizzy as they didn't know what to do to continue their lives. Things that had anchored them like responsibility, war, slaughter, and protection had become a hallucination. All the warriors here had lost their will to fight. They didn't know where they should do or return to. As long as you serve my mistress, not only she will ensure your safety, but she will also offer you a great opportunity. She will help you get rid of Desolate's confinement. You will be able to fly freely in the world. At this moment, Tianxia's enticing voice guided them, which added to the intimidating aura from Ziyao. Some elders of the God clan with a weak will had nodded perplexedly. Oh sorry, the great opportunity you said isn't attractive to me. Suddenly, Yin snorted. His mind flickered to open the space crack connecting to Grace Mainland. The endless sea reappeared. So you still want to be an imprisoned slave, sneered Tianxia. Yin pouted his lips and didn't care about him. He jumped into the space slits abruptly. Perhaps everybody here was Desolate's prisoners, but not him. His soul wasn't created by Desolate. He was independent. Desolate couldn't control his fate. Also, He wasn't bound to any absolute beginning creature. Currently, he had just perceived the dark energy, a kind of power that could change something rotten to magic. As long as he had enough time to understand its subtle features, he could reach Bloodthirsty's level. At the same time, he could avoid Bloodthirsty's tragic fate. Why would he be subdued and become Ziyao's servant that acted as she pleased? Moreover, it wasn't the real Ziyao. It was Huey's soul. This space slit can remain for a while. She can't destroy it because I used the same kind of energy to create it. If you want to leave, you have to act fast. Yin turned around and smiled before he left. Audrey's beautiful face was moved. She didn't say anything and dashed forward at her max speed. She went after Yin, flashed, and disappeared into the space slit. At the same time, He, Adele, Frederick, Lady, and Azure Dragon weren't hesitant for a long time. They dashed forward rapidly. As they were hovering pretty close to Yin, before the space slit closed, all of them with their profound realm had disappeared. Ziyao was sitting cross-legged on the imperial crown. Her beautiful eyes squinted as she had a gleam of teasing. It seemed like she had already calculated it. Before the space slit closed, a strange energy shook it and deviated it. Before it disappeared, its direction and destination changed. Mistress? Tianxie frowned and asked for Ziyao's direction. Ziyao's face didn't change. They can't return to Desolate's incipient extent. Yin and that little girl have fused with the origins of Desolate's clones. As long as they can't come back, Desolate can't awaken. It's good for us then. Then, she looked at the members of the God Clan, the 4 heavenly kings, the chiefs of the 12 families, and the elders. Follow me, or I'll destroy you. Choose one for yourself. The God Clan's warriors were filled with fear. It was a misty place without skies or the earth. The remains of broken stars, fragments of the asteroids were floating. The holes in the void flashed and moved strangely like a monster's mouth ready to devour the victims. A desolate, cold, and barren aura filled every corner of the place. Further from there, the broken pieces of the stars and dregs floated like sawdust in the immensely vast sea. An unknown chill multiplied in Yin's heart. He was standing on a massive, dark red rock. Looking at the further area, he was horror-struck. Of course, it wasn't Grace Mainland. When Yin stepped into the space slit, he understood that something went wrong. He realized that an energy had shaken space and affected his teleport. He didn't know where he was. He released his soul consciousness and found that he couldn't reach the end of this place. It was like a small boat floating in the most remote area of an endless sea. He couldn't find commotion of living beings. Crack! All of a sudden, a crunchy noise arose together with slight breathing on a diamond-like rock next to him. Yin was surprised. His body flashed and he landed on a giant, rough diamond. He looked at Audrey and asked in surprise, "Why are you here?" Audrey looked a little helter-skelter. Her green dress was torn, revealing her white jade, glowing thighs that gave people a lot of thoughts. As she heard Yin's voice, she calmed down and spoke immediately. "It's the first time I came to Grace Mainland. This place is strange to me." While talking, she slowly rose up, her eyes cold and clear. She curiously observed her surrounding. Shortly after, she became odd. "This place isn't Grace Mainland." Yin forced a smile. "While we teleported, Ziyao had affected the space slit. I don't know where we are now. What surprises me the most is that I can't connect to Grace Mainland. I can't find the way back." After he had got here, he had tried to connect to the origin of Grace Mainland. Unfortunately, his soul consciousness was like a rock sinking into a sea with no echo. This never happened before. In that cosmos, as soon as his thought flickered, he could connect to Grace Mainland's origin no matter where he was. Even if when he was in the chaotic space basin, he could connect to Grace Mainland quickly and return there in just a blink of an eye. However, in this area, his connection with Grace Mainland was cut off. He couldn't catch any signal or connection. Of course, this area isn't Grace Mainland. It's the sea domain of Nihility. Audrey's pretty face was fearful. Yin was shaken hard. He grimaced. "This place is the sea domain of Nihility?" Audrey forced a smile. I've never been here before, but I heard about it from my mother. This place is sea domain of Nihility. It's the most mysterious area in the world. If Tianxie is correct that the universe we're dwelling in is just Desolate's incipient extent, the sea domain of Nihility has escaped from Desolate. Of course, you can't contact Grace Mainland now. Yin understood it now. Previously, he could return to Grace Mainland within a moment because he was in the cosmos that Desolate had created. The turbulent space current didn't belong to Desolate, but it had a magical connection with Desolate. They had many passages between each other. That was why he could travel at ease. However, this sea domain of Nihility didn't have a bit related to Desolate's incipient extent. In this area, it was just a dream if he wanted to come back to Desolate's incipient extent. Only you got here? Yin contemplated for a while and then asked. It seems that he and the others also followed me, but I'm not sure if they got into the spacecraft or not. Even if they did, I'm afraid that they will be scattered around the sea domain of Nihility. I think they couldn't return to our familiar world. Yin looked bitter. He scanned the immense space that he didn't belong to and said, "How can we go back?" God knows. Audrey shook her head. Pausing for a while, she suddenly looked astounded. Yin, that Huey's clone is close to you, right? Of course I'm close to her. She is, Yin answered instinctively, but he paused unnaturally and gave a dry smile. She's a close friend of mine. I could never have imagined that she was the soul of Hui. It's true that we can't predict anything. Well, she's not only a close friend, isn't she? Audrey looked as if she understood everything. Her face was natural, but the corners of her mouth jerked as if she was teasing him. As long as they are pretty girls, they will have some relationship with you. I think it's a little ambiguous. After I'd returned to Imperial Dark Tribe, I've investigated you. You're that sort of person, she confirmed. Yin felt ridiculous, his eyes odd. Were you too free when you got crazy? Why did you need to investigate me? Well, it was because you're the new master of bloodthirsty force. Audrey pouted her lips. Yin didn't talk more. He concentrated on observing the surroundings. He found that the furious energy filled the place. The broken stars, the remains of the asteroids, and the pieces of things that he couldn't name weren't still. From time to time, they moved as the sea domain moved, and with the changes of the spatial holes in the void. Not far from them was a sparkling stone that released a scorching heat and waves of terrifying energy. He sensed it for a while, and his eyes brightened. He immediately dashed toward that stone. Audrey was surprised. She furrowed her brows and followed him. There was a scarlet stone inlaid inside a crack of a burning red rock. It was as big as a fist, but the energy fluctuations and the waves of fire seething from there were so formidable. It's the nucleus of the sun. Although it's just fist-sized, it's priceless. To the people cultivating firepower Upanishad, it's really helpful, said Audrey with bright eyes. Inside the sea domain of Nihility, it's really magical. I heard that only immortal realm experts could survive this place. We haven't reached the immortal realm yet, and your realm is even lower than mine. How are we still safe and sound here? Yin was skeptical. Perhaps we haven't reached the dangerous areas yet. I guess we're at the outermost area of the sea domain of Nihility, said Audrey faintly. It should be because we're fused with the origin. Yin had another thought. He rose one hand to grab that solar nucleus, then spurted a gold flame. The flame surrounded the nucleus and refined it. Gradually, the scarlet stone was melted into drops of fire. I used to hear from my mother that the sea domain of Nihility has a lot of fragments of the powerful divine weapons. They are much stronger than the secret treasures that we know. There are many things we can't even name. They remain here after the break of the star areas from long, long time ago. Seeing him melting down the solar nucleus, she looked surprised, mumbling, I believe so. Spark got a piece of celestial ice jade flake around this place. He had refined it to be his life treasure with formidable powers. Xiao took that flake. I think it could be the sharpest weapon the absolute beginning era. I'm afraid this sea domain of Nihility used to be the arena of the absolute beginning creatures. Yin looked pensive. Chapter 1354, The Long, Lonesome Days. Chapter 1354. The Long, Lonesome Days _. The void was hazy with countless pieces of rocks and broken stars. Dangers hid everywhere and generated from time to time. The land here was endless and ever desolate. It was like a world that had been abandoned for billions of years. There was no aura or any streak of living beings. Yin and Audrey were sitting on a rhombus piece of a broken lunar star. They looked at the endless void, their faces low-spirited. Yin had refined this broken lunar star to make it a temporary battleship. Using his god power, it moved fast like a meteor shooting across the sea domain of Nihility. With the current speed of this lunar star, it could travel through a star area that was more than 1 billion miles in a day. However, they didn't know how long they had been riding on this piece of rock. They got no harvest along the way, anyway. They had encountered nothing precious or any creature. It seemed like only the two of them existed in this immensely vast and borderless sea domain of Nihility. The lonely, isolated feelings gradually churned in their hearts. They thought that they would never see hope or the other end of this place. In the beginning, the two still talked and encouraged each other every day. Then, they reduced the talking as they saw the dispirited gleam in each other's eyes. This place had thin earth and heaven energy that they could use to cultivate. However, it was weak, so it was really difficult to use the energy here to advance their cultivation further. One day, Audrey's cold eyes slightly brightened. She still wore a green dress, and her beautiful face didn't have a speck of dust. A faint halo protected her sexy body. How long has it been? She mumbled as if she was talking to herself. Yin opened his closed eyes as he heard her, his face bitter and astringent. There's no sun, moon, or stars. We don't have the concept of time here. I don't know how long it has been, but I think it should have been more than a while. Before we got here, my third sky of incipient god realm hasn't steadied, but now, I'm good. I wonder what is going on in our world. Had we destroyed our world? I don't know where my mother teleported to. If she was here, why haven't we met yet? Audrey hadn't talked to Yin for a while, and now, when she began talking, it seemed like she couldn't stop. Sigh, if I'd known we would be delivered here. Staying back there wouldn't have been a bad choice maybe. Yin was surprised. If you stayed there, perhaps you wouldn't be killed, but your soul would have a soul seal that doesn't belong to you. You want to be its puppet? Audrey was low-spirited. She stooped and sighed. No matter what, she was still very mesmerizing. According to you, the experts at the immortal realm used to come here to train themselves. How could they get in? And how do we get out of here? Asked Yin with a frown. Although my mother is an expert at the immortal realm, she's also the matriarch, so she had to manage the tribe. She hasn't had a chance to visit the sea domain of Nihility yet. She told me that those immortal realm experts had come to the end of our world and crossed a strange river to get to this place. Audrey furrowed her brows and remembered her mother's words. She explained, the warriors coming here from our world have a special compass which navigates our world. That's how they can save themselves from getting lost and end up finding the way home. Yin gave a bitter smile. It's tragic that we don't know the direction. We don't know where our world is. We're like headless flies flying aimlessly. This area was misty and they couldn't measure time or check the direction. They were left with endless loneliness and coldness. If a warrior got lost here, loneliness and isolation would nibble his or her heart. He would eventually lose his mind and sink into the eternal darkness. In this area, despair was someone's biggest enemy. If he couldn't defeat his despair, his will was going to wear out. In a hopeless situation, he would think about negative results. Then, he would fall into bewilderment and gradually get weaker until he consumed all of his vitality. It's strange. My mother said that this area is extremely perilous. Dangers are hidden everywhere. Why are we still safe and sound? Audrey was curious. Yin couldn't explain this. Elder Spark of the God Clan had visited the sea domain of Nihility, but he had just surveyed the outskirts of the sea domain. He got the celestial ice jade flake there. According to him, the sea domain was extremely dangerous. Except for real experts at the immortal realm, The others could hardly survive. However, during this time, besides the isolation, loneliness, and coldness, Yin and Audrey hadn't actually faced any danger that could make them perish. This filled their hearts with doubts. Is it really the sea domain of Nihility? Could we be wrong? Yin sounded astounded. No, we can't be wrong, Audrey confirmed. See, pieces of broken stars, dregs of the asteroids, the void caves, and turbulent energy. They are the features of the sea domain of Nihility. I guess it's because of our location that we haven't encountered any danger. Maybe we're in a very special area in the sea domain. Which place? Yin was surprised. I don't know, but I've heard from my mother that the sea domain of Nihility still has some relatively safe areas that the experts could rest in for a short time to adjust their conditions. Anyway, she also said that there wouldn't be anything to harvest in those areas. The precious items wouldn't appear there, explained Audrey. Why is that? Asked Yin. She said that there's so many Immortal Realm experts have visited the sea domain of Nihility to explore. They had finished searching for precious items in the safe zones a long time ago. Nothing was left. Only the areas with a lot of death traps could have treasures that they haven't discovered yet, answered Audrey in a low-pitched voice. Suddenly, she got up. Her creamy, straight legs were so attractive. Her pair of clear and deep eyes zoomed over to the further area. She sighed. Tianxie said that we've been living in Desolate's incipient extent. That world isn't a real universe. I think the creatures from a real universe used to come to this area. But because it's unimaginably vast, it's hard to meet them. She turned her head to look at Yin and contemplated. The precursors of Imperial Dark Tribe used to meet the aliens in the sea domain of Nihility. They belonged in a real universe. It's a secret in our tribe. It's not to be told to the others, but we're in a special circumstance. It's okay if I tell you now. The creatures from a real universe? Were they absolute beginning creatures? Yin was astonished. I don't think so. Audrey shook her head. According to the records from our precursors, although they looked strange, they weren't as giant as the absolute beginning creatures. My precursor couldn't communicate with them. They met and then parted shortly after that. My precursor guessed that they were really strong and not weaker than him. At that time, he was at second sky of Immortal Realm. Yin kept silent. He got the truth for a long time ago. He knew that the world he had dwelled in was just Desolate's incipient extent. It was the world that Desolate had created. It wasn't a real universe. The sea domain of Nihility had gotten rid of Desolate. Thus, it wasn't strange if other creatures could come here. In this immense sea of stars, if the absolute beginning creatures like Desolate, Devour, or Hui could exist, there were other living beings. Perhaps they weren't as powerful as absolute beginning creatures, but they were clearly strong. Theoretically, it wasn't strange if the precursor of the Imperial Dark Tribe could encounter some aliens in the sea domain of Nihility. It was just that they were wandering in an extremely vast area, and they couldn't meet any strange creature. As thoughts crossed his mind, Yin kept quiet for a long time and then said, "We can't stay idle like this. Perhaps we should seek the dangerous areas proactively. We can find the precious treasure in the place that could threaten our lives. We could even see the other creatures. If they stayed in this safe zone, even if they could rest for 100 years, they wouldn't find the way home. If they couldn't meet any other creature to learn about this area, they were never going to escape this place. It's a good idea, but we don't even know where the dangerous areas are. Even if we want to go there, we have to find a suitable area," said Audrey begrudgingly. "If you had told me we could have a bigger chance if we entered the dangerous areas, we would have gone there a long time ago. While riding the meteor, I could feel that some places were very dangerous. I tried to avoid those areas." When they were moving, Yin had released his soul consciousness to sense around. He recognized many areas with the terrifying energy fluctuations. The auras of those areas made him feel his life was threatened. Thus, he didn't notify Audrey and avoided to ensure his own safety. And now, listening to Audrey's explanation, he finally knew that they must take risks to find the right direction. They had to proactively jump into those death traps. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Audrey rebuked and blamed him for wasting their time. You couldn't endure the dangers there. I just wanted to keep you safe. Yin gave her a forced smile. You're at first sky of incipient god realm. I'm sure you can't survive the lands I've sensed. Let alone Audrey. Even Yin knew those areas were unpredictably dangerous, that he couldn't be sure about his own safety. Thus, he didn't tell Audrey. You disdain me? Audrey's eyes turned cold. All right, we should keep going. When my soul consciousness spots the danger, we will get there. I hope you can perform your best and surprise me at that time. Yin smiled relaxedly. Audrey snorted. Well, I'm one of the warriors with the origins. Even though my realm is low, I can protect myself. I won't depend on you. Nothing could be better than. Chapter 1355, The Asteroid Current. Chapter 1355, The Asteroid Current _ Yin opened his eyes while riding on the transparent piece of a broken lunar star and looking in a direction, his face stern. The chaotic energy waves came from that direction. World-destroying explosions boomed everywhere with space blades that tore the void. Yin felt his soul shiver. Yin was sure that the area his soul consciousness had sensed was filled with dangers. Audrey said that they could only meet the other creatures in perilous zones like that. Also, they could have a chance to get marvelous, precious materials or items in the sea domain of Nihility. Did you find something? After the previous talk, Audrey had noticed Yin's moves discreetly. Seeing his face turn stern, she wasn't frightened. She cheered up. A beautiful light glowed on her jade-like face. While she was mumbling, she stood up. Her creamy thighs moved, and she was like an agile green butterfly. This area was filled with the broken pieces of the planet, like a big speck of dust floating in outer space. From a very far area ahead of them, they could see the thick shower of brilliant meteors shooting toward an area where the chaotic energy congregated. The lightning struck like a giant, outraged dragon soaring up into the sky. The thunder rumbled and shook people's souls. The sharp blades were like scythes cutting the world. They could even cut massive pieces of broken stars like cutting soft tofu. Those sharp blades were Space Blade, famous for its swift and fierce nature. Although they weren't made by any experts with space power Upanishad, they were much keener than a blade that DeCarlos could create with his best ability. Yin had no doubt that those blades could dismember the experts at the immortal realm easily. That area? He wore a heavy face and pointed at the area where the shooting stars were congregating. He discreetly urged his energy and then turned to Audrey. Are you ready? Audrey's beautiful eyes gazed at the place. She looked surprised and frightened. Pondering for a while, she nodded resolutely. I'm ready. Yin didn't say more. The rhombus lunar star underneath them turned into a cold and clear moonlight and accelerated toward that dangerous area. Audrey's breathing became short. Her milky breasts thrust out and radiant light filled her eyes. Flows of chaotic, fierce energy shot like sparks or like millions of fireflies. Those remnants of energy were visible and were shooting sharply like a fierce shower of steel needles. In the beginning, she didn't use the god power to create a protective, light cage. She acted as if she was mad at Yin, so she tried to be bold and use her body to resist the energy. Thus, the sparks shot over and destroyed her tight dress, creating fingernail-sized holes and revealing lots of her white, mesmerizing skin. When they came near, Audrey found that those shooting meteors were actually giant asteroids. Those cosmic rocks had so many colors. Some were garnet, some were orange-red, and some even looked like diamonds. They existed in various shapes, though. Those asteroids didn't come from the area they were in, but from another direction that was misty gray with billions of floating asteroids like a sea. At this moment, those asteroids seemed to be activated and given life. They moved, grouped, and shot toward them. It looked like some unknown force was controlling them and making them fly fast toward the dark area. There were millions of them. While they were flying, they collided and exploded. The shockwaves of those explosions were enough to crush first sky of immortal realm experts. The sparks that hit Audrey were the shockwaves of the asteroid's explosions. Although they were just shockwaves, they were so sharp that they cut a lot of holes on her dress. Yin was standing with Audrey on the broken lunar star. They were still far away from those currents of asteroids. He turned around and looked at Audrey's new clothes with great interest. He grinned and arched his brows. Well, your new dress looks really nice. I like it a lot. Don't change. Let me behold for a while. Haha. Many mysterious areas of Audrey's jade-like skin were exposed under the holes on her clothes. They made people lose their minds in them. Yin felt his passion rising high when he saw her perfect bosom, thighs, waists, and even her butt cheeks. His eyes became nakedly hot as he kept grinning evilly. Go die. A dim, frosting flame flew out of her wet lips with her life aura. It immediately hit Yin's chest. The icy aura of the extremely cold heaven flame was like a bucket of ice water that poured on his passion and extinguished it. Even his hair turned into the sharp icicles. You deserve that. Audrey looked cold. Her bright eyes showed that she was amused. Her agile body moved. Countless shadows of departed souls twirled around her body and shielded her from Yin's naked gaze. She spun 3 rounds at her spot. The departed souls around her vanished. When she reappeared, she wore a dark blue dress. The end of her brow twitched as she tried to press down her smile. Well, did your flame of lust extinguish? Not yet. Yin didn't change his mind. As his soul flickered, the ice on his body melted. A cluster of icy flame bounced back to Audrey. She swallowed it. It was her origin's heaven flame. Boom! All of a sudden, the lunar rock underneath them accelerated. It didn't listen to Yin's control anymore and headed toward that dark area at a breakneck speed. Just like millions of rocks around them. Audrey was astounded. She didn't quarrel with Yin anymore and screamed. It seems that some force is pulling those asteroids. We're affected too. We're attracted to that area. Don't try to be bold. Use the god power to create a protective barrier with many layers to cover your body. Yin's face was heavy and stern. He sat down on the rock and said, Come to me. Being closer is better. The shock waves from the asteroid explosions are enough to crush your bones. You should be careful. As soon as he finished, 2 giant asteroids collided around 10,000 meters away from them. The energy from that collision boomed like nuclear warheads impacting. The shock waves seemed to distort even the void and created a chain reaction. The floating rocks near them also exploded. The shock waves didn't cease and headed toward Yin and Audrey. Audrey wanted to snap back 1 or 2 sentences, but then she felt the formidable shock waves. Her exquisite face turned cold immediately. She zoomed toward Yin like lightning and sat next to him. The emerald light cages swayed and covered her body when her god power was urged. As the princess of Imperial Dark Tribe, she had mastered the special soul power Upanishad of Imperial Dark Tribe. Her sensibility was sharp, and she always had a clear grasp of the attacking power. She understood that the coming shock waves could harm her body. Thus, she was resolute and didn't say a word. She decided to move to Yin to seek protection. Star Shield. Yin screamed and 10 starlight beams shot out of his hands. Those starlight bands were like ropes coiling around the surrounding asteroids and pulling them toward the 2 to create a rock wall. The asteroid wall shook several times and then subsided. Yin retreated his energy. The asteroids dispersed and then continued to flow forward. Audrey looked astonished as she said, There's a wisp of a feeble soul inside the rock over there. It's not a creature. I think it's the broken piece of some divine weapon. She looked at an asteroid in front of them. That asteroid was as big as a small life star. It had an unusual octagonal shape with dark brown colors. It looked like a massive plate. Some short grass grew on its surface, which made it unusual compared to the other barren asteroids around. Let's take a look. Yin pulled himself together to observe. He was surprised. Then, he urged the lunar rock they were riding on and doubled its speed. They glided through many asteroids around and headed toward the strange rock Audrey had seen. 15 minutes later. Rumble. The lunar rock landed on that dark brown asteroid. Yin swiftly landed on the surface of the rock. His mind flickered and sent the soul consciousness that could worm into every corner to all the small cracks on the surface of the asteroid. After a while, he was bewildered. A strange light shot out from his eyes. Audrey suddenly appeared next to him, her brows arching. She stepped toward a place. The place I've sensed is over there. Yin didn't speak. He looked pensive and followed her like her shadow. This dark brown asteroid had a lot of a strange kind of weed. The grass was around 1/2 meter tall, and it was as sharp as the saw with a tough vitality. This kind of peculiar, deep green grass filled every corner of the asteroid. At first glance, it was like a green carpet. While the asteroid was flying, the tufts of grass swayed gently like waving hands. They looked so strange, indeed. Immediately, Audrey's beautiful legs stopped moving. She bent her body to look at a dark hole on the surface of the asteroid. The hole was big enough for one person to jump into. It was so dark that she couldn't see anything. All she could do was hear the wind howling ear-piercingly. That feeble soul is right in the cave. I'm going there to check. Audrey turned around and looked at Yin to ask for his opinion. Hold on. Yin frowned and said, It doesn't feel right. I don't know why I got a terrible feeling as soon as I landed. I've just used my soul consciousness to cover the entire asteroid. I found that this asteroid has only that cave. Also, it allows only one person to get in at a time. What do you mean? Audrey didn't get his idea. Use your soul consciousness to check this area carefully. Can you feel that it's like a soul filament spreading everywhere? Yin mumbled. Soul filament spreading? Audrey was surprised. She pulled herself together to sense. She vaguely felt something wrong, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. Green grass. That's the green grass here. Yin discolored and screamed. Even though the green grass could be tougher, it couldn't survive here. The tufts of grass we see on this asteroid is the soul filaments. They are the feeble soul filaments. The soul fluctuation you've sensed should come from these things. Not true. The soul fluctuation comes from this cave. Audrey shook her head. It appeared as soon as we landed on this rock. The soul fluctuation comes from the cave after that. Perhaps it's trying to lure you and me to the cave, said Yin skeptically. Could it be like that? Audrey felt funny. She thought that Yin was overthinking it. She thought that it was impossible that something could trap them in this desolate sea domain of nihility. We should test it first. Yin looked gingerly. Chapter 1356. Using blood to create the body. Chapter 1356. Using blood to create the body _ Yin and Audrey stood by the cave and concentrated on the dark entrance of the cave. They felt a strange chill filling their hearts. Audrey calmed down. A tender light glowed on her face. Her soul altar was like a mirror without a speck of dust. As she had reached incipient God realm and fused with the heaven flames of God-blessed mainland's origin, she was definitely stronger than many people. When she focused on sensing, she could see that something was wrong. You're cautious indeed, Audrey said to him, her eyes surprised. You're right. That kind of green grass is everywhere, and they have feeble soul fluctuations. I told you that we should check it first. Yin talked seriously. How do I check it? Audrey quietly stepped back and stayed away from the cave. She could feel a little safer as she had stayed away from the danger. Simple. Yin rose one hand. A small cut appeared on his left hand, and a drop of beautiful ruby blood oozed out. That drop of blood released red halos as it contained thick life energy fluctuations. Swoosh! The drop of blood burned and emitted wise of blood chi like the spider web. It was like a great artist using a brush and sketching Yin's drawing in the middle of the air. Shortly after, the life energy in the drop triggered and surged. Yin's model soon had bones, flesh, and veins. Within 2 minutes, another version of him was condensed right in front of Audrey. It was another Yin who stood naked and showcased his lean and vigorous body. Although his eyes were sparkling, there was no surging life aura in his body or soul fluctuation that could frighten people. Rumor said that when the immortal demon warriors had reached a specific, profound level, even if their bodies were smashed, as long as they still had a drop of blood left, they could still resurrect themselves. Audrey deemed that it was untrue and that people were just exaggerating. But now, she saw it with her own eyes. The strange light rippled through her beautiful eyes as she admired Yan's magical ability. Does it mean that you have an immortal body? Even if you were smashed, you could use the blood to revive? She thought that it was really miraculous. Yan didn't answer. He looked pensive when he studied his other body, which was made of a drop of his blood. According to Blood Devil and Xian He, Profound Realm immortal demon experts could use the life power Upanishad to transform the blood into their own bodies. There were many rumors about the immortal demon clan, and how they used the blood to resurrect was always the favorite topic. In fact, people thought that the rumors were just exaggerated. Even for the experts of the immortal demon clan at a high level like Xian He, the body created from a drop of his blood couldn't have even one bit of the real body's strength. Anyway, the rumor said that using blood to resurrect was somehow correct. If Xian He's body was broken, as long as he still had the immortal demon blood, he could use it to grow his body and send his soul altar inside to make his body as strong as a dragon. The blood of the immortal demon clansmen was the core of life. If their blood wasn't destroyed, they could still regrow their body. Of course, after they had lost their real body, the body that they created quickly couldn't be as strong as they used to be. They needed a lot of time to gather the energy to refine the body. That was how they used the seal inside their blood to resume their original power. This procedure could take up to hundreds or even several thousand years. It wasn't as easy as people had rumored. At this moment, Yan gathered his spirit to look at the clone he had just made with one drop of blood, his expression complicated. He hadn't sent any wisp of soul consciousness in it. It was merely a flesh puppet, and its body's strength was as tough as a warrior at true God realm. If his true body was destroyed, he could place his soul altar into the clone, and it would take dozens of years to recover. It wasn't what made him silent. While he was using a drop of blood to create the clone, he had a strange feeling as if he was creating a new creature. If he wanted to do that, he could cut off the connection with a wisp of soul consciousness and put it into a clone. Also, that clone would become a new creature. Could it be a whole new individual? Would it be an independent creature? Yan knew that at his realm, he couldn't do that. However, he came to think of a possibility. Desolate had used the same method to make its clone create the 4 great creatures. The clones had created the 4 great creatures, and Desolate had used the blood of the precursors from the 4 races to create Bloodthirsty. It was creating creatures. How could Desolate do that? It was easy to create the flesh container, but how did Desolate create the soul? Yan frowned and sank into his exploration of life power Upanishad. He was trying to reason the details when Desolate created the creatures. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get through the challenge of creating the soul of a new creature. He understood that he was still pretty far away from that miraculous level. However, he understood deeply that one day, he could break that mystery and he could actually create creatures and even new races. Thus, his galaxy-like incipient extent was going to be more lively. It would become like Desolate's world with so many races and special, marvelous creatures. Creating the galaxy and species. How great would that career be? How miraculous would that be? Yan became passionate. He felt his soul rising as he had a motivation to head towards the future. This kind of changes in his soul and attitude had opened his mind and gave him fearless thoughts. I made the body. You should give a wisp of a departed soul. We will make him go to the cave, he beamed at Audrey. He knew Audrey cultivated a unique soul technique from the soul power Upanishad of Imperial Dark Tribe. She could tie the departed souls in her soul altar to refine her soul altar and make them the strange soul consciousness dwelling in her sea of consciousness. She had some marvelous power, indeed. There was a special area in Audrey's soul altar she used as a prison to the departed souls or the demons, making them her soul consciousness tentacles. The more departed souls, demons, or creatures with the soul form, the better her power Upanishad and her realm became. It was also a special feature of Imperial Dark Tribe's power Upanishad. Indeed, Audrey didn't think much. She pointed her finger, and a feeble soul flew out, falling into the head of Yan's clone made of his blood. Shortly after, Yan and Audrey felt a slight shock. They faced each other and divine light shot out of their eyes. A marvelous feeling quietly reflected in their hearts. The body made of Yan's blood now had a soul Audrey that had tamed. She added a wisp of her soul power. That man with Yan's blood and Audrey's soul was like an invisible rope that connected the two of them. Through him, Yan could vaguely see the changes of Audrey's mind. Audrey could recognize the subtle changes at the bottom of his heart. It was an unimaginable connection that they couldn't describe with words. "He's like our son." Yan was bewildered for a while before teasing Audrey. Audrey blushed and her cheeks reddened. However, her beautiful eyes were brilliant with light. She glared at Yan and said awkwardly, "Don't say such rubbish." At this moment, her eyes were like clouds at a sunset. She looked so gorgeous, like a blooming flower. She made people's hearts beat frantically. Yan became baffled. He looked at her for a while and then appraised. "You're really beautiful. It's just that you wear that cold face every day. You don't want people to come near you. You've been hiding your most beautiful features. It's not good, you know. Can you just put your effort into the business?" Audrey continuously took many deep breaths. Her ample breasts thrust in and out. Her moods changed as she was trying to suppress the desire to hit Yan hard. Yan smiled relaxedly and said, "You're the one who should take action. You've tamed that soul, and it got your soul seal. You can control it, right?" Audrey harumphed and pulled the hair on her temple. "I'm so pissed off." Then, she used her power Upanishad and pointed at the cave. The puppet made of Yan's blood drilled deep into the cave. It didn't stop after 15 minutes and moved further. "It seems pretty deep," frowned Yan. Audrey didn't mind him. The charming gleam on her face disappeared. She looked cold and grave. The soul energy fluctuated strangely on her as she was focusing on sensing the changes in the hole. She could sense the tiny commotions inside the cave through that departed soul to see if there was any danger deep down there. Suddenly, Audrey looked shaken. Her soul altar shivered as she paled. Her beautiful eyes emitted marvelous light. She gritted her teeth and hissed, "You're right. Something really strange is in that cave. I couldn't connect to my departed soul and my soul consciousness in it." "What happened?" Yan's eyes brightened. "It seems to be cut off forcefully. Perhaps it was refined or destroyed. I can't tell what happened. Do you feel anything from the body you'd used your blood to create?" she asked. "It turns into ashes." Yan darkened his face. "I can't sense anything. It doesn't exist anymore. I can't feel it, which means it is gone completely." "You're right. Something strange is over there. This place isn't safe at all," Audrey was convinced. "Then, we should use another advanced method to see what strange thing is inside this meteorite." Yan snorted and then continued, "Dared to swallow a drop of my blood. It should pay with the equal price. Whatever it is, it should pay." Then, sharp blades like shining wind blades shot out from his eyes. A magical energy fluctuation that could distort the void expanded from him. The surrounding space sizzled. The noises became louder gradually. In the beginning, Audrey didn't understand. Then, she looked around before covering her mouth and screamed in panic. She saw that the massive sharp space blades floating near them were attracted by Yan's energy. They came with the momentum of something space-breaking. Chapter 1357, A Three-Legged Jade Cauldron. Chapter 1357, A Three-Legged Jade Cauldron _ A sharp blade saber like a 1,000-meter-long lightning bolt appeared with the momentum that could mince the entire planet. Audrey had thought that countless pieces of broken stars and flows of meteorites in the sea domain of Nihility were caused by those dragon-like space scythes. At this moment, those terrifying space sabers were drawn by Yan's power Upanishad. They came with the most intimidating aura. Along their way, they had scythed dozens of giant rocks. The rocks exploded and sent pieces of rock chips everywhere. Seeing a massive blade coming, Audrey was numb. She hurried to use the power Upanishad and create layers of barriers to protect her body. She was ready to counter. Crack, crack. The giant blade slashed the surface of the asteroid they were riding. The hard surface sparked and sent so many rocks into the air. A tremendous shock came. Audrey's soft body shook violently like a small boat under a harsh thunderstorm. She felt so horrible and swayed as if she was about to collapse. Strangely, the massive asteroid spun after the impact as the space blade couldn't cut it through. However, many rocks on the surface shattered. "Oh, it's really strange, though." Yin cried as he was surprised. Then, he continued to drive more space sabers. 5 more large blades came and clashed on the asteroid. It looked like someone trying to ignite the rock. The sparks appeared clearly while the dish-shaped asteroid was spinning around. Crack, crack, crack. So many ash-brown rocks of various sizes fell off the asteroid. They were destroyed shortly after. The asteroid trembled, but it was so powerful. It collided with the other rocks around, smashing them or sending chips of rocks everywhere. The asteroid itself was safe. It was intact, and it was unbelievably rigid. The sharp space sabers were the sharpest attack in the world. It could have the planet or destroy the life star quickly. Even the body of the immortal realm experts couldn't endure one slash. It was tough to resist such an attack. Anyway, this massive asteroid had just spun or trembled under several attacks. It wasn't destroyed yet. As the asteroid spun, Audrey became dizzy and turned pale. When the rocks collided and the tremors arose, the sparks and the rock chips damaged her too. The light cage protection she had made with her first sky of incipient God Realm cultivation base flashed constantly. It looked like her protection was about to vanish. At this moment, Yin stopped guiding the space sabers. He rose one arm and directly pulled Audrey into his embrace, holding her cold body in his chest. The warm, masculine smell flooded Audrey's heart. She was dizzy and her eyes were puzzled. Just like a drowning victim who instinctively grabbed anything she could, she clutched and squeezed Yan's arm. While she hadn't recognized, her body leaned against his. Her generous breasts were placed on his broad chest. The asteroid was still spinning. The two rolled and felt like the sky turned upside down. The energy attacked the surface and made the rocks roll and fall off the asteroid. Yin held Audrey with one arm, and her wonderful body fell while his other hand gathered and released a river of starlight, using a special method to balance and adjust the trajectory of the asteroid. This kept it from colliding or moving into the area with constant explosions. In front of them, dozens of meteorites were colliding and created earth-shaking explosions that sent formidable shockwaves. Together they created an area that could destroy everything. He knew if their asteroid fell into that area, he and the princess of Imperial Dark Tribe in his chest would perish quickly. No one could save them. After a long time, the asteroid subsided. The lunar rock they had gotten rid of had fallen off while they didn't recognize it was happening. The asteroid beneath them became normal. However, it was still pulled by some mysterious force, moving quickly towards a dark area. Oops. He pulled himself together to observe the ground. He couldn't help but cry in surprise. His face became odd. Audrey got herself together. She was about to scold him for his rash actions, but his cry had affected her. She also looked at the ground. Immediately, her bright eyes lighting up. What is this thing? She seemed to lose her usual calmness. Her soft body shook. The asteroid under their feet was now like a beautiful jade, something that had just shaken off the bark. It was now emerald green. The thing that had just been revealed was like some sort of precious jade they couldn't name. It glowed in a deep green halo. The green grass on the surface of the asteroid was now some kind of archaic tadpole language. The drawings looked like tadpoles swimming around underneath them. The symbols glowed in a glossy, emerald green light and moved around as if they were unceasingly creating something magical. It seems like we need to peel off more rock. The rock surface is just a cover, I guess. Yan's eyes brightened as he grinned. He moved the strange asteroid around and used the bloody sword to smash the rock sticking on the jade surface with the bloodlight. The sea domain of Nihility had many mysterious things. As Xian He, Ming Hao, and the 4 heavenly kings had chosen this area to cultivate, it meant some marvels here had attracted them. Spark had collected just a piece of a broken divine weapon in the outskirt. After he had refined that celestial ice jade flake, his competence increased massively. It indirectly provided evidence that showed how wonderful this place could be. It used to be a strange rock before the space sabers had peeled off the rock surface. Unexpectedly, the thing underneath the rock layer was so magnificent. Yin felt his heartbeat faster. He could confirm that this massive jade was the reason why the sharp space saber couldn't cut through the asteroid. As it survived the sharp space sabers and it had unknown tadpole symbols, this thing was likely a formidable secret treasure. Audrey didn't move rashly. She just looked at the thing under her feet and went absent-minded. She looked passionate when she mumbled, "This rock is so beautiful." Shortly after, all the rocks sticking on the surface of the asteroid peeled off. The thing under the rock layer was revealed, and it glowed in a mesmerizing green light. Unexpectedly, it was a giant three-legged jade cauldron. This massive jade cauldron was at least several times bigger than the Immortal Island. It was beautifully green, and the surface of the cauldron was filled with tadpole symbols. It seemed like those symbols were lush tufts of grass they had seen. The cauldron's mouth was deep and eccentric with a cold and dark aura. It was like the mouth of an icy beast that was ready to swallow people. The three-legged jade cauldron was placed inclined. Yin and Audrey were standing on the body of the cauldron. They observed and complimented it. "The cave we saw must lead to the mouth of the cauldron. My departed soul and the wisp of my soul consciousness seem to be refined. I can feel that they are now just a normal tadpole symbol on the surface of this jade cauldron." Audrey rubbed her smooth forehead and looked astounded. Yin knew why she looked like that. This three-legged jade cauldron was so massive while each of the symbols on its surface was just as big as a fingernail. If Audrey wasn't wrong that one of her departed soul and a wisp of her soul consciousness had been absorbed by the three-legged jade cauldron, and they had turned into just a small symbol on the cauldron, had the billions of tadpole symbols on this cauldron been created the same way? How many creatures' lives had it taken? Yin could feel his hair rising on his nape. With a stern face, he looked at the dark mouth of the green cauldron, crying in a low-pitched voice, "Don't get close to the cauldron's mouth." Audrey was chilled while she was walking toward the cauldron's mouth. She reacted timely, halting by the place and asking, "If it can draw the creatures into it, it should have a tool spirit. Should we find a way to communicate with it? If we can't find any other living being here, we can try this." Communicate with it? Yin wore a sour face. Even if it has a tool spirit, this thing can refine the soul. When you release a wisp of your soul consciousness, it will happen as you've said. It will become a tadpole symbol. Perhaps you could try to check it out. Fine. Audrey didn't believe him. She had many detached souls in her brain. As her mind flickered, she released a feeble soul. Without attaching her soul consciousness to it, she used her power to make the soul a wisp of soul fluctuation to ask for information. Then, she sent the soul to the cauldron's mouth directly. Then, nothing happened. No commotion arose from the three-legged cauldron. The detached soul she had released disappeared like a rock sinking into a seabed. Nothing echoed. "It seems like this tool spirit isn't friendly at all," snorted Audrey. Shortly after, the tadpole symbols on the surface of the jade cauldron became like a twisted green lightning. They created a strange but marvelous entry fluctuation. Many fragments of the asteroids around seemed attracted to some magnetic field. They swarmed over and magically stuck on the surface of the jade cauldron. After 1 hour, the three-legged jade cauldron was covered with rocks again. It had resumed its original appearance before the sharp space sabers had peeled it off. However, it didn't have green grass or a cave this time. Yin and Audrey watched the whole thing. They felt so begrudging as they didn't know where and how to destroy this jade cauldron, or what they should do to connect to the tool spirit. If there was a tool spirit, how is your fusion with the heaven flames? How many heaven flames does your God-blessed mainland's origin have? How many flames that still need to fuse with each other? Yin rubbed his chin and asked something. It seemed not that relevant. Our ancestral star has 7 heaven flames. 3 of them have fused together and the other 4 have also fused. I'm in the final stage of heaven flame fusion. However, it's really hard to fuse them all completely. I haven't found a way to make progress. I think I'm going to give it up, said Audrey. Should we use the flaming origin to check if we can make this three-legged jade cauldron change? Yin suggested. Would it work? Audrey was surprised. I don't know, but just like what you've said, we should try. Yin shrugged begrudgingly. If it works, we can know the magical features of the jade cauldron. We can discover it. Okay, let's try. Audrey nodded in agreement. Chapter 1358, The Absolute Beginning Symbols. Chapter 1358, The Absolute Beginning Symbols _ Inside the rapid asteroid current, the asteroids moved like lightning strikes. They often collided, resulting in a lot of beautiful sparks and fire. Several thousand asteroids flowed like a river heading to the vast sea. They moved very fast towards a specific direction. This area didn't have a sun, moon, or the concept of time. It had only loneliness, a low temperature, desolation, and danger. Yin used space blades to destroy the rock layer underneath. He cleaned the rocks sticking on the jade cauldron one more time. The deep green jade cauldron was exposed. The fingernail-sized tadpole symbols were swimming around the surface and the body of the cauldron as if they were real living things. The mouth of the cauldron was emitting a dim light, hiding mysterious, terrifying secrets. Yin and Audrey parted. They stood opposite to each other on the three-legged jade cauldron. Flames burned fiercely on their bodies. Countless clusters of flame expanded and streamed. The flames on their bodies had different colors, including orange-red, dark red, icy blue, and bright yellow. Their auras were also different. The flames were fiery, dark, and sinister. Some flames sparked with lightning, and some flames carried a fierce wind. The heaven flames had different attributes. Particularly, Yin's heaven flames had the soul, lighting, electric, icy, top yang powers, and even the corpse chi auras. Audrey's flames were the same. After fusing, her 7 heaven flames became only 2. Her 2 origins flames had a similar aura as Yin's. They could switch the auras easily. Currently, their heaven flames with different auras and colors had all turned to the top heating, young ones. The heaven flames were like a carpet that slowly covered the surface of the three-legged jade cauldron. They were trying to use the scorching, top young heaven flames to refine this massive cauldron. Yin suddenly got a magical feeling. The clusters of Yin's heaven flame burned the jade cauldron. They directly contacted the aura of the tadpole symbols on the jade cauldron surface. His co-soul turned into a dim flame and slowly danced. A seal in his soul was triggered, and it gave him a familiar feeling. It was like when he met Hui and could use the co-soul to understand Hui's mysterious language. This time, his co-soul got a familiar feeling through the burning heaven flame. It seemed like he could recognize the consciousness of those archaic symbols. However, as he quieted down his mind to study carefully, he found that he still needed something to read them. Those tadpole symbols were swirling in his head. They were really familiar, but he couldn't read or understand them. Audrey had the same feeling, and it was even deeper than his. The wisps of her soul consciousness that fused with the Origin's heaven flames seeped into the tadpole symbols and tried to decode them. Audrey had fused with the heaven flames more deeply. Her compatibility level was almost as profound as Haig's, which was 1 level higher than Yin's. She was sensitive enough to know that those tadpole symbols were the written language of the most mysterious, archaic time. They were just like the Origin she had fused. She suddenly remembered what Tianxia had said. The 4 ancient continents used to be Desolate's limbs. They had Desolate's life consciousness and its dependent soul. Also, Desolate was truly a creature from the absolute beginning. Her beautiful eyes brightened as she screamed. Those tadpole symbols should be the language of the absolute beginning era. I feel that they're so familiar. I believe that when I completely fuse with the heaven flames and become one with God-blessed mainland, I will be able to read and understand those characters. I can decode the 3-legged cauldron. I think so. Yin nodded and agreed with her presumption. He regarded her, and then continued to burn the massive cauldron. He found that when the heaven flames covered the 3-legged jade cauldron, those tadpole characters acted as if they were creatures with lives. They swam around the surface of the jade cauldron, which made them look exactly like little tadpoles. As they were moving around, they created so many different, mysterious, and complicated drawings on the surface of the cauldron. Each of those drawings hid the marvelous mysteries. For example, at this moment, they were creating a scene of lightning strikes and thunder rumbling that was destroying the whole world. The lightning bolts crushed so many asteroids around and gave people a strong impression. After a while, the characters changed again and created a harsh, icy world that was absolutely cold, lonely, and barren. Whenever the tadpole symbols created a new drawing, the cauldron released a corresponding aura. The cauldron had bolts of lightning shooting, and then it became very cold. The energy that the three-legged Jade cauldron released was according to the drawings that the tadpole symbols had created. It was really magical indeed. However, when he and Audrey paused and subsided their heaven flames, the tadpole characters also subsided and then stopped moving. The drawings on the giant cauldron disappeared gradually. Yin understood everything quickly. He pondered for a while before retrieving all of his heaven flames. The heaven flames can't refine this thing. It isn't afraid of the sharp space sabers, so I think it won't be afraid of the heat of the heaven flames. You're correct. Those symbols should be the language of the absolute beginning era. Also, I think this giant three-legged Jade cauldron should be the weapon of the creatures in that era. Perhaps it has been here for billions of years. It's normal that we can't destroy it. He reluctantly gave it up. Seeing him let go of the heaven flames, Audrey hesitated for a while and then did the same. She thought for a while and then said, I sense the soul aura from those tadpole characters. They are the refined souls. I can feel that they are parts of some massive formations. If we can understand those characters, we can know the functions of this cauldron. Also, maybe we can tame and use it. Then, we have to wait until we can fuse with the heaven flames completely. Yin smiled bitterly. Audrey said nothing. Completely fusing with the Origin's heaven flames was a long process. Sometimes, individual efforts weren't enough. They needed something special or some good encounters. Every time Yin had fused his heaven flames, it wasn't because of his experience or accumulation. It was his special encounters when his mind suddenly opened to understand the marvel. It was unknown until they fused all the heaven flames. As they couldn't understand the characters on the cauldron, they were just wasting their efforts by burning it. This magical item from the absolute beginning era wasn't something they could decode, and taming it was just a dream. Forget it. I think this flow of asteroids should have a destination. Let's see where it is. As Yin was begrudging, he felt content with this idea. Not long after Yin and Audrey had retrieved their heaven flames, many meteoroids and asteroids around were attracted to the cauldron, sticking on its surface. Without grass growing, the massive cauldron became a simple asteroid. Compared to the other asteroids around, it wasn't eye-catching. The two of them were dejected. They then closed their eyes to cultivate on the three-legged Jade cauldron. They were trying to fuse their heaven flames with the hope that they would be able to read the language of the absolute beginning era. Then, they could have a chance to seize this cauldron. Unfortunately, the fusion of the heaven flames wasn't easy. Time flew hurriedly. After an unknown course, Yin opened his eyes. This time, his eyes emitted a dazzling light. He jolted up and hissed, I felt the aura of something alive. The life magnetic field is really fierce. We're approaching it. Audrey woke up, her beautiful eyes twinkling. Ahead of us? Yin nodded. Then, he realized that the asteroid with the cauldron inside was flying much more quickly than the other rocks around. Thus, while they were cultivating, this asteroid had caught up with something ahead of them. The vigorous life magnetic field he had sensed had come from an asteroid ahead of them. If they got rid of the lunar rock, they would have never met that one. However, their current asteroid was really fast. After flying for a long time, they were about to reach the others. Which realm does it have? Layers of light emerged on Audrey's body. She had discreetly urged her power. Now, she was ready to deal with any danger. Along the way, she had sat by Yin, and they hadn't encountered many dangers. It was because of the three-legged cauldron they were riding. Inside this current of asteroids, terrifying dangers appeared everywhere. The rocks bumped into each other and exploded. The lightning and thunder struck everywhere. The sharp space sabers had never ceased their attacks. So many asteroids had been smashed into dust and scattered. However, the asteroid they were riding seemed to have the spirit that could proactively dodge those dangers. It had successfully avoided the extremely intimidating things that could make Audrey perish instantly. She understood that this three-legged jade cauldron had something magical. Even if it didn't have a tool spirit, it was a wonderful formation that could help it avoid the dangers in this area. Otherwise, she and Yin wouldn't be able to stay here at ease. I'm not sure, but the life magnetic field is brimming. I think it won't be weaker than you and me. Yin's face was grave as he hissed. Be careful. They found us. They've released their soul consciousness to check us out. A soul power field like a tornado appeared above their heads. That soul power field was extremely fierce and had seeped into every corner of this asteroid. This asteroid had a dark cave that led to the depth of the asteroid, which headed directly to the mouth of the cauldron. Yin and Audrey knew this, but the one who had sent the soul consciousness to sense it didn't. The furious, tornado-like soul consciousness of that creature seeped into the entrance of the cave. Then, it disappeared like a rock thrown into the ocean. However, there was no echo. Then, many soul energy tornadoes that had streamed into the cave disappeared completely. Yin and Audrey were sensitive enough to know that the three-legged cauldron inside the asteroid had just refined a powerful soul consciousness. They could feel the tadpole symbols begin to move again. I think that one got a big loss this time, Yin grinned. Audrey also laughed. Well, I wonder how much soul power that one lost. He had bad luck. If his soul got damaged because of this, I'm afraid that he will consider us as the ringleaders. Be cautious. Yin's face became stern. Chapter 1359, Heavenly Eye Clan. Chapter 1359, Heavenly Eye Clan _ In the shoreless, endless current of asteroids, three aliens that looked pretty similar to the human clan were riding a flaming asteroid. They were all lanky with curly brown hair. They didn't look very different from human beings aside from a vertical slit that was between their eyebrows. It looked like a vertical, closed eye. They had an extra eye compared to humans, and that closed eye gave people an odd feeling. The three of them included an old man with a dejected appearance. His eyes were wrinkled like chicken skin. He wore an ash-gray robe. Accompanying the old man was a middle-aged man with twinkling eyes. He held a dry wooden staff, and his face was gingerly. The last member of this group was a woman who looked to be in her 30s. She was wearing brocade clothes. Her face was picturesque, and her body was graceful. This group of three came from the same clan that had an extra eye. At this moment, the old man's vertical eye was twitching. The green veins on his forehead bulged and made his face sinister and fierce. The middle-aged man and the woman were cautiously looking at the old man. Shortly after, the old man shook hard. His vertical eye was still closed. 2 trickles of blood oozed out of the corners of his mouth. His blood was brown-gray. It wasn't red. Senior. The middle-aged man and the woman screamed in their alien language. They all grimaced. As they were screaming, they were about to use their power to help the old man recover. The eye on the old man's forehead shrank into a slit. His pair of eyes under that vertical eyes opened. With a pale face, he waved his hands to prevent the others from helping him. Don't waste your energy. My soul got hurt, not my body or god power. He stood up and turned around to see the area behind him. The middle-aged man and the woman followed him and waited for his explanation. The 2 aliens behind us don't have high realms. They're at just incipient god realm. However, the asteroid they're riding is really strange and unpredictable. Half of the soul energy tornado I'd released was swallowed. I couldn't feel the power of the asteroid yet. Perhaps their master is staying inside the asteroid. We should be careful. While he was cultivating, his third eye sent him some anxious feelings. He gathered his consciousness to sense and found Yin's and Audrey's life magnetic fields. Thus, he didn't hesitate to explore. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to retrieve half of the power he had released. Shortly after, his soul was damaged. He was startled indeed. Senior, what should we do? Their asteroid is flying fast. Soon, they will catch up with us. Should we find a place to avoid them? The woman's eyebrows twitched. She hurried to suggest. She was a gingerly person. When they encountered unknown dangers, she proactively tried to dodge them. The sea domain of Nihility was so immense. If they didn't try to find it, it was going to be tough to meet up with the other creatures. Nevertheless, the creatures that could operate in the sea domain of Nihility were very bold. In this group of 3, the woman had the lowest realm at third sky of incipient god realm. This time, she didn't dare to act rashly as she was accompanying her 2 brothers. If we leave the flaming crystal cloud boat, it will be very dangerous. We'll have to face exploding asteroids, sharp space scythes, and bombarding lightning bolts. In your realm, you won't be able to resist for a long time. We can't take the risk. The old man shook his head. The flaming asteroid underneath them was also strange. The burning asteroid emitted fire clouds, circling the rock and sending sparks everywhere. Countless lethal space sabers, strong gusts of wind, and even the icicles couldn't attack them. They could only glide through them. They were safe along the way. They didn't need to worry about the deadly dangers in the sea domain of Nihility. Thus, they had time to cultivate and sense Yan's and Audrey's life energy commotions. What should we do now? The woman sounded reluctant. The asteroid they are riding is strange, but it's just my guess. Maybe they don't have any master accompanying them. If so, we don't need to worry at all. The old man pondered and then decided, wait until they come close. We can ask them to know who they are. Yeah, under the given circumstances that we don't know things clearly, we shouldn't provoke them. But if there are only the 2 of them, harumph? His eyes suddenly became dark and sinister. A murderous aura emitted from him that was as thick as if it was a real matter and could destroy people's mind. His realm and cultivation base weren't low. However, when the massive 3-legged cauldron had collected his soul power, it also hurt his soul. He was going to need a lot of time to recover. Deep in his heart, he hated Yan and Audrey already. If he didn't need to concern himself with the mysterious cauldron, he would have stormed over and crushed Yan and Audrey to vent out his anger. We'll follow you, Senior, nodded the middle-aged man. The cold light radiated from his eyes as he looked pensive. On the surface of the asteroid with the big cauldron inside, Yan squinted and looked at the torrential asteroid current. We will encounter them soon. There are 3 of them. Their soul magnetic fields are full and surging. I'm afraid that their realms aren't low, but I can't clearly tell their realms. When we see them, we will know. They're the first creatures we ever met in this area. Audrey arched her brows, feeling excited and looking hopeful. But the one who got his soul hurt won't be friendly to us. Are you sure we can deal with them? If we're cautious, we'll be all right, said Yan. I hope we can get some useful information from them. I wonder how long we've been trapped here. Perhaps our world out there has changed earth-shakingly. You can ask, has Hui destroyed our world yet? How about Desolate? Has it awakened yet? Audrey mumbled. She had no measure to tell time, but she guessed that they had been trapped here for around 10 years. During this time, she couldn't contact Imperial Dark Tribe, and she couldn't use the power of the Origin to see the commotions on God-blessed mainland. She was really worried about the members of Imperial Dark Tribe, her planet, and her mother's safety. My co-soul is all right. It means that my Grace mainland is all right too. As your soul doesn't have any change, your ancestral planet is safe too. Don't worry too much, comforted Yan. Most of his friends and family members had been delivered to Grace mainland. As long as Grace mainland was okay, he didn't need to worry a lot. The fierce war between the God Clan and the bloodthirsty force had swept through many star areas. However, he didn't really care about them. When he delivered Xia Xi and Yin back to Grace mainland, he had discreetly advised her to call all the ones who had a good relationship with him to return to Grace mainland. After he had fused with the Genesis fruit, Grace mainland changed marvelously. It had a layer of immense energy hover above the surface of the planet. It protected Grace mainland every minute. He believed that unless Hui used its real power, but its clones couldn't destroy Grace mainland. No matter how strangely the world changed, As long as Grace Mainland and his friends were safe, his beloved ones were safe and sound, he could ease his mind. Audrey calmed down as he had comforted her. She sighed. I hope so. The asteroid underneath them continued to accelerate. Suddenly, a dazzling flaming rock appeared in their vision. That flaming asteroid was so brilliant that it was eye-catching among countless ash-gray, brown, or black asteroids. So many flaming clouds covered the beautiful, slender, boat-like asteroid. The three aliens were standing on the back of the rock and looking at Yin and Audrey with bright eyes. Oh hey, they have another eye between their eyebrows, screamed Audrey in fear. Yin was surprised. Looking at the three aliens, he lowered his voice. The old man and that middle-aged man are at first sky of immortal realm. That woman is at third sky of incipient god realm. That old man is really formidable. He's about to enter second sky of immortal realm. He's just one step away. Yin had contacted Caesar, Ling Xiang, Lorraine, Xin He, Frederick, De Carlos, and he had also witnessed how intimidating the Godlord and Ming Hao were. With his sharp senses, he could know the realms of the others exactly through the level of the blood qi, the tenacious body, and the life magnetic field. He could see even the smallest change of the soul clearly. As Audrey listened to Yin, she felt cold, so she proactively stayed close to him. Audrey had only first sky of incipient god realm. At this moment, her realm made her the bottom of the food chain in the sea domain of Nihility. She was vulnerable here. The vertical slits in the labella of the three aliens riding on the flaming crystal cloud boat twitched. They gazed at Yin. Their ears quivered as if they were trying to identify his language and identity. After a while, the old man suddenly smiled warmly at him. He pitched his voice and used Yin and Audrey's language. We're the members of the Heavenly Eye clan. We're glad that we can meet up here. I would like to ask if your precursors or your seniors are here with you. Do we have the honor to meet them? Audrey was bewildered. You know our language? The old man chuckled and explained in a friendly manner. Well, of course. As we travel through the sea domain of Nihility, we have to prepare well. We use a kind of soul memory seal to learn a couple hundred languages in many different star areas. Your language is rare, but not really difficult. Don't be amazed. If you want, you just need to imprint the soul memory seal in your head, and you can speak many languages of different star areas. His friendly attitude made him a modest precursor guiding the juniors step by step. He didn't look dark and sinister as he used to. Yin wore a cold and faint face, but he was actually very cautious. He thought that this old man was very hypocritical. He knew that this old man was an evil character that he needed to carefully deal with. If this man came with rage, Yin could accept it. This fogey had been hurt by the massive three-legged cauldron anyway. However, at this moment, he looked so friendly as if nothing had happened. He made Yin uneasy immediately. Yin knew that he was a sort of tough and malicious person. He observed carefully and found that the other three were gazing at the asteroid that he and Audrey were riding. He understood it immediately. He knew why the old man had to act gingerly. The others weren't so sure about their competences. Chapter 1360, Three Kinds of Living Beings. Chapter 1360, Three Kinds of Living Beings. Updated by Novel Full. The three members of the Heavenly Eye clan were looking at the asteroid Yin, and Audrey were riding with bright eyes. Also, the old man, their leader, had asked to greet their precursors inside the asteroid. Yin sneered inwardly. He understood that the others were nice and friendly to them, but not because they were polite and well-educated. It was because they couldn't guess how strong Yin and Audrey were. Throwing a glance to the asteroid underneath, Yin wore a respectful face, bowed slightly, and then lifted his head. He spoke arrogantly. I'm sorry. Our master is cultivating inside. He can't come out to greet you. Please understand. Ah, no worries, no worries. The old man's eyes sparkled as he studied Yin. Seeing Yin act arrogantly, he thought that Yin wasn't scared because he had a strong master. The old man was startled, so he became even more cautious. His smile became more tender as he said modestly, Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Evelyn's. They are my brother and sister, Adams and Masha. We're going to the territory of the Dragon Lizard clan. I wonder if we're heading to the same place?" While he was introducing, the middle-aged man named Adams and his sister Masha smiled and nodded to greet Yin and Audrey. They were sneaking looks at the asteroid underneath Yin and Audrey as they were filled with fear. Remembering what Evelyn's had told them, they didn't dare to provoke Yin and Audrey since they were really afraid of the rage of Yin and Audrey's master who was cultivating inside the asteroid. The rapid steroid current rumbled all the time. While they were talking, Yin and Audrey's asteroid was moving faster, so they were approaching Evelyn's flaming crystal cloud boat. With this torrent, Yin and Audrey were going to pass the boat and leave Evelyn's and his group behind. While Yin was talking, Audrey kept a cold face. She just listened and didn't utter a word. She was clever enough to see what the three experts of the Heavenly Eye clan worried about. Thus, she acted even more arrogant and proud. It looked like she didn't even put them in her eye. The more arrogant and cold Audrey got, the more cautious Evelyn's became. He thought that the girl and Yin had a strong foundation to depend. Thus, he pondered if they should proactively make way for them. Evelyn's didn't even dare to tell the others that his soul got hurt because he was afraid of the disaster he could face later. Dragon Lizard Clan? As Evelyn's was about to retreat and get further away from these two, Yin suddenly smiled. "To be honest, our precursors are cultivating inside and he has ordered us to drive. But we—" Yin looked embarrassed and said, "This is the first time we've ever come here. We made a wrong turn, so we're lost now. Our precursors didn't know this yet. We're really upset. We don't know where we are now. Is the Dragon Lizard clan you've mentioned near here?" Audrey appraised Yin for his witty reaction. She cooperated by pulling a sad face. The cold visage disappeared. She sighed as if she was afraid that her precursors would punish them. The three members of the Heavenly Eye clan exchanged looks and smiled. Masha, the only woman in that group of three, beamed at the others. "Yes, this area is the Dragon Lizard clan's territory. Precursor Dragon Lizard, the second generation of the Dragon Lizard clan, is having a meal. The asteroid current over there is his food. While he's eating, he will take in the surrounding asteroids to increase his power. After that, Dragon Lizard will stay awake for a course of time. The members of the third generation of the Dragon Lizard clan will have a festival to celebrate the Dragon Lizard waking up. They will sell a lot of precious treasures. We're going there to see if we can find the cultivating materials we need." Listening to Masha, Yin and Audrey were touched. They could never imagine that the second generation of the Dragon Lizard clan would consider the outer space rocks as food. "What is that man? Is he an absolute beginning creature? Is that Dragon Lizard a creature from the absolute beginning era?" asked Audrey, her voice strange. Evelyn's looked at the strangely. He rubbed his chin then asked, "You guys are from Desolate Territory?" "Desolate Territory?" Audrey was surprised. She felt as she was lost in the mist. She couldn't grasp Evelyn's idea. Evelyn's was more surprise. "Your precursors didn't tell you anything about this place? You have no basic knowledge about the sea domain of Nihility at all?" Audrey didn't change her countenance. She still wore the cold face as she snorted. "As soon as we got here, those fogies got inside the asteroid and cultivated. They said that when we got to the place, they would explain to us. They had only shown us the direction to go. Such a bunch of irresponsible old men." She stomped and cracked the rock surface. She looked so outraged. The three members of the Heavenly Eye clan changed their countenances. They were more fearful of the fogies Audrey had mentioned. It meant that there wasn't only one expert hiding inside the asteroid. Also, since Audrey didn't sound respectful when she talked about them, Audrey must be their favorite student. "Oh, I see." Evelyn's was astounded. Seeing them approaching, he had an idea. He clasped his hand and said, "Oh, if you don't mind, I can explain something to you. It could save your precursors from this labor too." Audrey's heart beat frantically. Of course, she wanted it a lot. Still, while wearing a cold and faint visage, she nodded and said casually, "Then I have to thank you." "Don't be too polite." Evelyn smiled and then began explaining. "Normally, there are three kinds of creatures living around the sea domain of Nihility. The first kind is the ones like the dragon lizard clan whose first-generation ancestor was the absolute beginning creature called lizard. The real absolute beginning creatures have a single-worded name, which is the language of the absolute beginning era. Lizard's second generation has a two-word name, which is the dragon lizard. After the dragon lizard, it's the dragon lizard clan. They are the later generations of lizard, the absolute beginning creature. This is the first kind of creature in the world. The second kind is the one like us, the members of the Heavenly Eye clan. Our ancestors weren't the absolute beginning creatures. They were high-level living beings created after the absolute beginning era. Of course, it's possible that our blood has the vestiges of absolute beginning creatures, more or less. But it's not really important. We're the new living beings of the new era. About the third kind, Evelyn's paused for a while and grinned oddly. It's you guys. You're the living beings that the absolute beginning creatures have created. They use the power of the absolute beginning creatures with the understanding of life to trigger the earth and heaven and even destiny to create new lives. Because you were created by the absolute beginning creature, your soul is also born in the territory of that creature. You will be bound and limited to that creature. Unless you destroy your creator or tame it, your soul will always have an enslaving seal. Your creator can control you. So, among the three kinds of creatures, we are the ones that are discriminated as the weakest? Audrey said through her gritted teeth. No. Evelyn shook his head and continued explaining. Your kind can still cultivate to an extremely profound level. You can evolve endlessly. There are some of you who can kill the creator or replace it. Of course, before you can do that, you are bound, but only your creator can bind you. No one else can have this ability, anyway. Pausing for a while, he added, actually, when the three kinds of creatures cultivate to a profound level, they aren't too different from each other in nature. There are so many peerless warriors among of your kind. They aren't weaker than the other creatures of the other two kinds. If you can kill your creator, you can replace it and become more intimidating. Listening to Evelyn's, Yin and Audrey exchanged looks and appeared pensive. After they met the members of the Heavenly Eye clan, they knew more about the settings of this immense universe. Staying inside Desolate's territory, they were like the frogs under the coconut shell. They had lived in a dry well without knowing how high the sky really was. But now, they finally knew a bit more about its mysteries. How did you know we came from the Desolate territory? Is there anything to differentiate or divide the areas? Asked Yin. Evelyn's wasn't surprised because of their ignorance anymore. Your language exists in my memory soul seal. It's the language in the Desolate territory, the territory of Desolate, an absolute beginning creature. Previously, there were some creatures from your area who came to the sea domain. Thus, your language was recorded and spread out. Pausing for a while, he continued, there are so many territories similar to Desolate territory outside the sea domain of Nihility. Also, there are real independent territories that were created at the beginning of the universe. The sea domain of Nihility has many entrances connected to outside territories. I've told you about the three kinds of creatures. Many of them live outside the sea domain of Nihility, but some of them still live in this sea domain of Nihility. For example, the Dragon Lizard clan lives right in the sea domain of Nihility. So, the sea domain of Nihility is the center of those territories? The territories out there are independent worlds surrounding the sea domain of Nihility? Audrey was surprised. Evelyn's nodded. Yep, exactly. Your Desolate territory is the territory that Desolate the absolute beginning creature had created. It isn't different from the real territories. Even if Desolate vanishes, the territory will remain. Anyway, the territory of our Heavenly Eye clan wasn't created by an absolute beginning creature. It's the universe that has naturally developed for billions of years. Most of the territories out there formed naturally. The territories created by the absolute beginning creatures are very rare, and they are much safer. In fact, you guys are very lucky that you can reach such a realm. You guys are living and growing in a greenhouse. I know that many people living in our territory would envy you guys. Envy us? Audrey looked awkward. Of course, they envy you, Masha intervened, her eyes filled with sadness. Our family lives on a star in our territory. When I was born, there were hundreds of kids like me. But now, not even after 1,000 years, 2/3 of them are gone. Most of them were killed by natural dangers while cultivating outside. Like this sea domain with so many death traps? Sure, Yin was fearful. No, not this much. If they lived here, they would have all been killed. We wouldn't even have had 1/3 left. Although our area isn't as dangerous as this area, it isn't safe at all. The deadly storms and tornadoes could destroy even the souls. If we want to cultivate, we must take risks. Death happens regularly, said Masha. The areas outside this sea domain of Nihility are mostly like our Heavenly Eye clan's territory. Dangers lie everywhere. After experiencing so many challenges out there, when we reach a specific realm, we are qualified to enter and travel around this sea domain of Nihility, said Adams, the one who had kept silent all the time. Sure, Yin and Audrey silently listened to them. Until now, they had finally gotten clear information about the sea domain of Nihility. They finally knew how mysterious and deadly dangerous it was. Also, there were so many similar territories outside the sea domain of Nihility. This place was the center of so many territories, the most mysterious and attractive place to high realm warriors and high-level creatures. Chapter 1361. The First Battle in the Sea Domain. Chapter 1361. The First Battle in the Sea Domain. Updated by Novelful. Evelyn's was like the nice and friendly grandfather next door as he told them the mysteries of the sea domain of Nihility. With the information he had provided, Sure Yin and Audrey finally had a clear understanding of the place. Now, they knew how vast the real Sea of Stars was. In fact, there were countless territories similar to their territory. Now, they knew that not only Desolate, Devour, and Hui were creatures from the absolute beginning era in this world. Also, the incipient god realm was actually vulnerable in the sea domain of Nihility. Desolate territory is the world that Desolate had created. It's really magical. Have your precursors ever met Desolate and gotten its core inheritance? Evelyn suddenly asked while the vertical slit on his forehead twitched and sent a miraculous wisp of soul, which then fell into Audrey's eye. Audrey suddenly became bewildered. Her eyes looked puzzled. Her consciousness was seized as she had only first sky of incipient god realm. Evelyn's had ambushed her quickly. She said perplexedly, "No precursors are with us. We deceived you." Hearing her, Sure Yan's temples convulsed as he cried inwardly. His face became ultimately stern. He didn't think more and pulled Audrey to his side, sending a flow of cold energy through his hand into her body. Shuddering, Audrey woke up. Her beautiful face turned frosty, her eyes coldly piercing. Sure Yin cursed himself for being careless under his breath. He had underestimated the cunning feature of the others. Evelyn's had shown his smiling face all the time and explained to them everything they had asked. His nice and friendly attitude had reduced Sure Yan's and Audrey's vigilance. Sure Yin thought that they were really afraid of his imaginary precursors, so they came to befriend them. He didn't expect that this old man would be so bold. He had spent a lot of efforts to tell Sure Yin and Audrey some information just to make them relax their guard. Then, he attacked Audrey, the one with the lower realm. Audrey was under his soul attack and telling him the truth. Such a treacherous old man. Audrey looked cold as the departed souls moved around her body. Eliminating the wisp of attacking soul consciousness in her brain, she hissed. Evelyn's, Adams, and Masha fell into silence after they had heard the truth from Audrey. Masha just frowned, her face odd. She sighed as if she was sympathetic for what the other two were about to experience. Evelyn's and Adams, her two seniors, were cold and sinister. The warm smile on their faces vanished. They immediately showed their real colors. Mwahaha. Evelyn's laughed evilly. I didn't expect that you two would be such ignorant kids. The thing inside this asteroid should be the treasures of your school, right? It hurts my soul, and it made me skeptical. I have to waste a lot of time to identify the truth. Do you know how much of my time you have wasted? While talking, Evelyn's moved like a cold light and zoomed over from the flaming crystal cloud boat. In just a blink, he landed on Sure Yin and Audrey's asteroid. He turned around and said to Adams and Masha, I can handle them easily since they are only 2 juniors at incipient God realm. They can't escape me. You guys don't need to waste your god power. Adams nodded and said darkly, Then, we have to bother you, Senior. Senior, shouldn't we not act so harshly like that? Frowned Masha. There's no rule worth mentioning in the sea domain of Nihility. It's their bad fate that they've encountered us. Moreover, the asteroid they're riding should have something really good inside. Adams snorted and told her off. It's the first time you came here. You don't know how malicious it is in this area. If we encountered second sky of immortal realm here, we wouldn't have a natural death. Don't be compassionate. Otherwise, you'll have to endure a big loss in the future. Masha sighed weakly. She didn't say more because she knew it was no use. Hey, you old man. You do have a dark and profound scheme. You've invested a lot of efforts to make us understand the marvels of the sea domain of Nihility. I have just one more question. Did you guys tell us the truth about this area? Yin frowned and looked at Evelyn slowly approaching. He discreetly urged his power. Nothing we've told you guys is false. Of course, to make you show your weakness, I couldn't make any mistake. You guys don't have enough experience. Don't blame me for being sinister. At this moment, Evelyn's wore a cold and harsh face. He didn't keep a bit of the friendly countenance. He directly walked toward Yin. I will kill you first. Then, I will use your sister's soul to investigate the miraculous powers inside this asteroid. You want to kill us because your soul got hurt. Don't you think you're too savage? Yin gave him a forced smile. My soul has been damaged badly. It has affected my breakthrough. You guys must pay with your lives. Hissed Evelyn's. His curly brown hair emitted a gray halo. He threw both of his hands into the sky. The gold light suddenly burst out of his palms when he released the keen god power. Shortly after, countless fine gold fragments swarmed over like the torrent of billions of hard needles. They were aimed at Yin and Audrey. Each of the gold fragments had a wisp of Evelyn's soul consciousness. It seemed like he had fused his soul and his god power perfectly, giving the fragments consciousness so that they could lock Yin and Audrey precisely. The gold shower made a downpour. Audrey's departed soul shrieked in her soul altar. Her body emitted a cold aura, but her eyes looked frightened. She had just first sky of incipient god realm cultivation base while Evelyn's was at first sky of immortal realm. His metal power Upanishad was profound and magical. His compatibility of god power and soul had surpassed most of the people with the metal power Upanishad in desolate territory. He had an absolute understanding of power and soul. Bloody shield. Yin wore a cold face. He rose one hand to touch the void. A sea of blood emerged and turned into a massive shield as large as the sky. The blood cloud mark on the shield moved like a blooming red flower. It had stopped all the gold fragments. Bang, bang, bang. The gold fragments shelled on the bloody shield. Gold electric beams sparked as the metal power inside the fragment hit the shield hard. Blood burned in his body. A brutal aura shot out of Yin's head like a blood column connecting his body with the bloody shield. Boom! The bloody shield emitted blood halos. A deadly aura that could kill all the creatures expanded like seawater. Agar! Evelyn's eyes brightened. He screamed in astonishment. He was shocked because Yin could stop his supernatural power. Adams and Masha behind him were also surprised. Evidently, they hadn't expected that Yin at third sky of incipient god realm could endure his senior's attack. They knew that Evelyn's hadn't used all of his power, but if Yin could endure such an attack under the given circumstance of the big gap between their realms, this young man wasn't an ordinary warrior. Kid, your god power is really abundant. No wonder you dare to travel around the sea domain of Nihility, even though you know nothing about it. But it's too bad for you since the first warrior you met here is me. Evelyn's laughed contentedly. So many gold fragments emerged on Evelyn's palms like gold fireflies floating in the void. Those fragments condensed and congregated quickly. It became a gold saw that connected directly to his left arm. His arm shivered and the gold saw shot out a gold rainbow, using the sharpness of the metal power that could tear everything and fiercely slash the bloody shield. Bang! Millions of gold fragments sparked on the surface of the bloody shield. A dent appeared on the shield and the halo of many blood clouds dimmed out. Crack! 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 Yan's body was cracking as if he was made of jade. His iron-like, tenacious body was torn by the terrifying shockwaves, his veins bulging under his skin. However, there was no bleeding. He shook his shoulder. A surging vitality arose in his body. The cracks and cuts on his skin were mended quickly. His body glowed in a blood halo. I know you're at the immortal realm, but since I came to this world, the one thing I'm good at is to breaking the arrogance and confidence of higher realm warriors, grinned Yan. His power Upanishad switched. The commotion of the deep, vast sea of stars burst out from his body. Meteor dance. The starlight shot out of his 10 fingers like chains that coiled tin surrounding asteroids. Instantly, those 10 asteroids had become his extended limbs and his weapons. 10 massive asteroids got out of the rapid asteroid current as the starlight chains pulled them. They grumblingly attacked Evelyn's. Their aura was much fiercer than billions of Evelyn's gold fragments. Evelyn's face changed. Adams and Masha exchanged looks, their faces stern. They had a new cognition of Yan's boldness. Now, they felt regretful because Evelyn's was so hasty. He shouldn't have made it so serious that they couldn't handle it. Audrey had good sense. She quietly retreated to Yan's back and released her departed souls, her special power Upanishad. She used the souls to lock Evelyn's commotion to prevent him from using the soul power to attack Yan's consciousness. Typically, the high real warriors would have their soul consciousness be one level higher than the low realm warriors. Sometimes, they could use their soul consciousness to smash the spirit and cognition of the lower realm warriors, making them sheep waiting to be slaughtered. When Audrey got ambushed, Yan had saved her. Otherwise, she would still be puzzled now. Thus, she was afraid that Yan would be ambushed in the same way. She carefully used Imperial Dark Tribe's unique soul power Upanishad, which used so many departed souls as a defense to prevent Evelyn's from using his soul to intrude them. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 10 massive asteroids were like 10 giant balls bombarding Evelyn's. He didn't dare to forcefully stand. He turned into a cluster of gold and drifted away immediately. The gold saw was still connected to his limb. Under his control, it slashed on the bloody shield one more time. Not that easy, Yan sneered. The fingers on his left hand flickered. An asteroid hissed while it moved to parry the gold saw. Countless gold light beams sparked. The big asteroid exploded, and the chipped rock showered everywhere. Evelyn's was shaken. The gold cloud he had transformed into dispersed. He reappeared limping, his face red. A trickle of blood dripped from his mouth. Apparently, he got hit one more time. This time, his god body was wounded. Chapter 1362, Lord of Stars. Chapter 1362, Lord of Stars, Yan had a magical, cheery feeling. After he had refined his body with the mysteries from Huey's brain, his soul altar, body, and even his blood was sublimated. He hadn't really fought against anyone. While facing Evelyn's today, he felt relaxed and calm as his god power, blood, and soul had reached a marvelously harmonious level that he had never dared to dream of. The branches of his god power, ancient tree, and his veins were connected. As soon as his mind flickered, the abundant star energy was triggered, overflowing unceasingly. Instantly, his body got filled with bursting energy without pausing or losing efficiency along the way. With just a beam of god power, he could maximize his power to the max. It had never happened like this before. Previously, when the god power in his lower abdomen was triggered, it would move through his veins before he could use it. During this process, there would be some delay and energy would be wasted along the way. He wouldn't be able to use all of the desired energy. Yan focused on exploring his soul altar. His sea of consciousness, which was the lowest level, was now an immensely vast ocean. Innumerable beams of soul consciousness weren't misty or smoky anymore. Now, they were materialized into the liquid form of energy like real water. It was a dark sea with murmuring seawater where a core power that could nurture the soul was filled. The aura of this sea was even more formidable than the god power ancient tree. The sea of consciousness had become a real sea with immense, dark seawater that realized the dark steam. The thick, dark steam arose and nurtured the tier of power Upanishads, heaven flames, incipient extent, the host soul and the co-soul. It was like an eternal source of energy supplied to his soul altar. His eyes shot out of a divine light. Concentrating harder, he found that the energies in his sea of consciousness and the god power ancient tree were completely different. It was like two sides of a coin. Yin was astounded, though. The god power ancient tree was dazzling like a massive diamond. The sea of consciousness was as dark as ink. It didn't reflect any light, but it murmured constantly. Once a wisp of soul consciousness flew out of the sea, it immediately turned transparent with the intimidating power. He suddenly had a feeling that his sea of consciousness was healing his soul altar and transforming it. Also, he had barely understood anything about the new energy, the dark energy in his sea of consciousness. At this moment, he had made up his mind. While he was in the sea domain, he had to decode this mysterious and yet wonderful energy. He had to get a good grasp of it. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Although his mind changed constantly, the asteroids connecting to his 10 fingers had never paused. The starlight chains connected the asteroid and continued to bombard Evelyn's crazily. Evelyn's gathered the energy of his metal power Upanishad. The gold saws flew out of his body and moved like rainbows attacking Yin. The massive asteroids gradually exploded with sparks and rocks. They had even rumbled an asteroid current. Whenever an asteroid exploded, Evelyn's was shaken hard. He felt the bones in his entire body get hammered. His face reddened. Until the last asteroid exploded, Evelyn's red face paled. His eyes became dark and sinister. The currents of energy in his body moved chaotically. Around 10 gold saws hovered above his head. The teeth of the saws were thick like open mouths of monsters. His resentful eyes gazed at Yin as he roared like a wild beast. The lid of his third eye shivered. A strong energy fluctuation came as if it was about to open. From the bottom of his heart, Yin had an extremely dangerous feeling. With a grave face, he discreetly urged his power. The pure star energy moved through his veins like a rapid stream. Instantly, his blood chi became full and his life magnetic field was reaching another realm. Then, he transformed into his fighting form as if he was facing his arch-enemy. The bone wings jutted out of his back. Spikes grew on his shoulders, elbows, and knees. A natural keratin layer of armor fitted his lean body. His fingernails were now cold, sharp swords. An evil, brutal oral emitted from his new fighting form. It was like a hissing volcano in hell that was about to release something deadly scorching. Evelyn's was so frightened. His third eye on the forehead convulsed as if it was about to open. "Senior!" Adam screamed in fear. Just like a wild tornado, he appeared and steadied by Evelyn's. He said heavily, "It's just a trivial provocation. Would you risk your life with him?" Although this little buddy has third sky of incipient god realm, his real competencies aren't weak. "Senior, just let it go." While he was talking to Evelyn's, he used the language of desolate territory so that Yin and Audrey could understand. However, while talking loudly, he had sent a discreet soul message to Evelyn's. This kid's blood isn't ordinary. He can activate the power of his blood to transform. I'm afraid that he's not easy to deal with. Senior, your soul and body are wounded. It's not easy to win single-handedly. Let's pretend to not get a hold to it. You and I will join hands and find the right opportunity to hit him and kill him instantly. Adams was using his soul to talk to Evelyn's. As Evelyn's was listening to Adam's secret message, his third eye didn't open. He looked as if he was considering Adam's suggestion. Not far from them, Masha sighed weakly. She knew that Adams was even more extreme than Evelyn's, and that man was filled with evil thoughts. When she saw that Adams didn't use the language of the Heavenly Eye clan to tell Evelyn's to retreat, she figured out their plan immediately. She understood that Adams now had another plan. He wanted to use his dark mind to handle this. In fact, it was also Adam's plan when Evelyn's had pretended to be friendly to talk to the others, and then suddenly used his soul to ambush them to find the truth out of them. In this group of three, Adams was the most cunning one. He was their insidious strategist. Masha understood their ideas. She covered her mouth, her face disbelieving. She thought that with Adams talking and Evelyn's nodding begrudgingly, she believed that Yen would stop fighting. Anyway, Adams was at the immortal realm, and she herself was at third sky of incipient god realm. If they had good sense, they would know that they shouldn't attack furthermore. However, right at this moment, when Evelyn's nodded begrudgingly and retreated his gold saws, that wild, young man grinned fiendishly and dashed forward. Masha discolored in fear. Audrey didn't know the reason. Her beautiful eyes looked puzzled. She didn't know why Yen still wanted to fight when her side apparently ceased to fight. Who do you think you are? You think you can kill, and when you can't do that, you want to retreat? It's not that easy. 10 starlight beams gathered into one. Yen abruptly disappeared into the starlight. The brilliant starlight band drifted toward Evelyn's and Adams like a magnificent ribbon. The starlight bands moved beautifully. A strong life energy surged like the giant wave. After that fierce life energy, a cold, death intent emerged and swept around. At the same time, dozens of giant space blades that were floating freely near them were attracted by the starlight. Moving with a long tail, they slashed toward the others forcefully. Inside the turbulent asteroid current, the space blades moving through the gaps between the asteroids were the most furious and dangerous things. Masha had seen the space blades slashing the giant floating rocks into powder. She believed that Evelyn's and Adams would perish when the space blade lacerated them. "Kid, you're crazy." Adams changed his visage. Yen attacked forcefully, ruining their plan before they could carry it out. At this moment, to show that he cooperated, Evelyn's had retrieved his metal power. When he saw the torrential starlight torrent coming with formidable space blades, his scalp felt numb. They didn't take Yen's characteristics into account, and he had underestimated Yen's intimidating and brutal ways. They were going to receive a big loss this time. Space drill. The sharp space sabers were hundreds of meters long. They came magnificently and were deadly. The sharp sabers glided through the void and sizzled. The asteroids along their way were smashed instantly. The space sabers pressed down like a keen drill from the sky. Adams and Evelyn's were shaken hard. They didn't have time to consider the situation. They immediately urged their power to the acme. They had to move swiftly like lightning bolts in between the asteroids. They didn't dare to stop for even a moment. "Mwahaha, all of you should pay a big price." Yen grinned fiendishly. The asteroids around Evelyn's and Adams seemed to be activated quickly. They deviated while shooting forward. Grumblingly, they barged into the two of them. While they weren't alerted, many asteroids had hit them hard. They coughed up blood and looked extremely helter-skelter. Those asteroids were like 1,000-meter-high mountains that were as heavy as the immortal island. As Yan's star energy had connected to them and was controlling them with his god power, they became his lethal weapons. In this vast sea of stars, Yan's star power Upanishad was an abnormal power. Innumerable asteroids in this place could become his weapons. Fighting against him here was just like seeking death. Even though Adams and Evelyn's had higher realms, Yen had the right timing and condition here. He could hurt them hard. "Seniors!" Masha screamed ear-piercingly. The flaming crystal cloud boat she was riding changed its route. Fire clouds emitted from the flaming crystal. Their asteroid turned into a starlight band and shot toward Adams and Evelyn's. The two of them had blood all over their faces. At this moment, their souls were shaken hard. They had given up the thought of taking revenge. They immediately hopped on the flaming crystal. Adams urged, "Go. Leave this place immediately. It's so unfortunate. What kind of monster did we encounter?" Evelyn's put on a dark and harsh face, looking at Yen sinisterly. "Wait until my soul and god body recover. I will come to take your life. You've bullied us intolerably. He's a harsh bully." Don't talk like that. "Oh, he's chasing after us. Gosh, he wants to hunt us down." Masha screamed. her face pale and cold. Inside the torrential asteroid flow, Yin was like a brilliant comet that flew toward them at breakneck speed. The asteroids in his way had proactively made way for him, as if he was the lord of the galaxy who could control the stars and the asteroids. He was born as the Lord of Stars. Chapter 1363. A Bad Hand Destroys the Flower. Chapter 1363. A bad hand destroys the flower under. Evelyn's and Adam's looked back. Their faces changed as they were filled with terrible regrets. Yin zoomed over through the chaotic asteroid current. The rocks in his way automatically drifted aside to give him lots of room. The shining, sharp space sabers hovered by him and gave him an unrivaled aura. With his body as a shooting star, the asteroids making his way, and the sharp space sabers moving around him, the power that Yin performed this time was like a deep seal imprinted in Evelyn's and Adam's. They had to hiss in pain. If they had known Yin was that bold, even if they had to die, they wouldn't have provoked them. Now, they had this slaughtering comet after them. What should they do? For the time being, Evelyn's and Adam were so regretful. Seeing Yin coming like a deadly rainbow, their scalps felt numb. They thought that they would perish this time. You don't want to let us go, do you? Masha stepped up. While her two seniors were hurt, she came to the back of the flaming crystal cloud boat to face Yin. Magically, when Evelyn's and Adam saw her walking out, they didn't look worried at all. Their eyes brightened. It seemed like they had great confidence in her. What? Yin squinted, his pores open. Instinctively, he smelt danger. He coldly looked at the heavenly eye woman and scanned her body. If your seniors didn't want to kill us, I wouldn't be hunting them down. When your seniors attacked me, I didn't see you prevent them. What is it good for now? A shining, thin space saber radiated a dazzling light, which had the death intent domain that could swallow all kinds of creatures. Just like a demon from hell, it snatched over the flaming crystal cloud boat. After reaching third sky of incipient god realm, he could combine the space, star, death, and life power Upanishads easily whenever his thoughts changed. It seemed like he could create a new supernatural ability easily. Different energies and techniques in his hands showcased as if they had consciousness. His attacks could become so profound and magical. The shining space saber had the power of the starlight and the death intent domain. It was truly the combination of space, star, and death. Ordinary people could never resist such an attack. Yin believed that even Adams and Evelyn's would find it hard to resist it. At this moment, Adams and Evelyn's were both injured. Their souls and bodies were hurt. They didn't dare to use their god power to face this attack forcefully. They could only dodge it. He wanted to force them to dodge, indeed. As long as they jumped out of this flaming asteroid, he would immediately control the sharp saber to smash this asteroid. He wanted to force the others to fight against him in the current of asteroids. He had soon recognized the magical power of the flaming crystal asteroid that they were riding. It could dodge the dangers in the turbulent current, and it could glide through the space scythes and the explosions easily. It had the same effects as the asteroid with the three-legged Jade Cauldron as its core. As soon as the others got out of the asteroid's protection, Yin was confident that he could kill Adams and Evelyn's in this asteroid torrent. Because those space rocks were under his control, they listened to his star power Upanishad. Do you really think that we don't have the power to counterattack? Masha became cold. Her clothes fluttered without the wind. It looked like she had electric currents flashing through her curly brown hair. The terrifying roar suddenly arose from inside Masha's body. She touched her glabella and her third eye opened, illuminating the entire world. The beautiful purple light immediately shrouded the area in front of her. In that violet light, a beast with a dragon head and a lion's body that was as imposing as a grand mountain emerged. It roared at Yin angrily. Boom! The shock waves came unceasingly and pounded the asteroids along the way into powder. Even the space sabers exploded. The energy surged through Masha's third eye and gushed toward the body of the beast that had the dragon head and the lion body. The strong beast became fiercer. In the faint violet light, it barged over and roared terrifyingly. Its sharp claws pulled and exploded everything in its way. It angrily roared and threw its mountain-like claw at Shi Yan's head. The cold light that had an extremely keen power sparkled on the beast's claws. This strike could smash Shi Yan's bones within a second and turn him into a pulp of flesh like those asteroids. The beast with the dragon head and a lion body was the holy mascot of Masha's family. She had to use her third eye to summon and use her own energy to activate it. The third eye of the Heavenly Eye clan had a special ability to summon the beast to help the master in fighting. Legends of the Heavenly Eye clan said that their third eye could connect to various kinds of animals, and it could generate a unique power Upanishad. It was their core power, but once the third eye was activated, the side effects would hurt the user severely. However, the energy it could release was extremely formidable. The beast Masha had summoned with her third eye was the holy mascot of her family. When it got her blood chi and energy, it was so powerful that Adams and Evelyn's couldn't counter it. It was also because of the supernatural power of Masha's third eye that Adams and Evelyn's had brought her with them when she had only third sky of incipient god realm. However, Adams and Evelyn's understood that whenever she used the power of the third eye, no matter what happened, she would get poorly hurt. The energy she pumped to the beast couldn't recover quickly. Thus, when she opened her third eye, the two of them made up their mind. They had to kill Shi Yan at any cost. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The brutal beast had crushed all the asteroids in its way. Its roaring also pressed the sharp space sabers and exploded them. Its ferocious power was released and locked Shi Yan in its tracks. It was storming toward him furiously. Masha paled, her plump body becoming thinner quickly. It seemed like even her flesh was being consumed. At the same time, the purple light projected from her third eye became more dazzling. The beast in that light had rocketed its power too. Watch out! The blood chi of that beast has almost reached Lady, the immemorial thunder dragon's level. Although it doesn't have a power Upanishad to use, it's not a joke. Audrey rode the fast asteroid. Her beautiful eyes rolled as she reminded Shi Yan not to be careless. Shi Yan's face became extremely stern. Seeing the beast barge in, his blood chi burst out like a formidable erupting volcano in hell. The bone wings behind his back flapped and released torrential blood waves that carried the crimson blood chi that could destroy everything. Wisps of energy in his sea of consciousness filled his body. His fearsome body flashed as if he was moving through darkness and light alternatively. When the dark energy seeped through, the space where he was staying exploded. Even the sea domain was shaking as if it was about to collapse. Inside that rapid asteroid current, dozens of massive rocks melted inaudibly. "Come here!" Shi Yan screamed indignantly. He suddenly disappeared as if he could go invisible. Swish! A bleeding cut appeared right in the chest of the dragon-headed lion. The energy rippling through its body looked like wooden patterns. It howled, screeched, and stormed toward the void, using its claws and fangs to tear and pull while wagging its long tail. Boom, boom, boom. Shi Yan in his invisible state was hit by the claws. He felt like a massive battleship had just bumped into him. His body shook hard. The blood in his body boiled. He reappeared. The bone wings fluttered like a saw cutting off the tail of the beast. Unexpectedly, Shi Yan's bone wings had broken the purple patterned tail of the beast. Crack, crack. Shi Yan's sharp fingernails thrust into the beast. It sounded like shattering diamonds when the beast's skeleton exploded. Tui! Masha vomited blood. Her face as ashen as a sheet of white paper. The light projecting from her third eyes dimmed. She looked ash-gray. Hesitating for a few seconds, she touched her chest. Her heart began to beat frantically 10 times faster than usual. The beast seemed to receive more boosts. It became super strong and more savage instantly. Shi Yan was surprised. Evelyn's was bewildered. He was about to open his third eye. However, seeing Masha trigger the power in her heart, he discolored and screamed, "No!" Adams cried, his face ashen. "Don't!" They ignored Shi Yan and dashed toward Masha. They both rose one hand to cover her third eye. As soon as the purple light was covered, the dragon-headed lion started dying. It faded, and disappeared slowly. Masha's face didn't have color. Her soft body quivered. Her frantic heart suddenly became sluggish. She looked even more vulnerable than before she had triggered her energy. Her heart gradually ceased to beat. Her situation was extremely strange. "I want to kill him. I want to kill him." Evelyn's burst out crazy. His third eye twitched as if it was about to open. He also wanted to use his power Upanishad that would consume his vitality. "Saving our sister is much more important," shouted Adams. Evelyn's eyes were garnet. Hearing Adams calling, he reacted fast. Their third eyes slowly opened and released green and blue light respectively. The lights from their eyes were like a life magnetic field that covered Masha. The magical life energy from the light slowly entered Masha's third eye. Ashen Masha steadied her breathing as the lights shrouded her. Her weak heart gradually started beating faster. Then, Yin landed on their flaming crystal cloud boat. He looked interested, observing and walking toward them. Yin. Audrey was sitting on the asteroid. Because it was moving fast, she was close to Yin now. She looked at him from a distance and frowned. "We shouldn't be extreme. We're new here. We shouldn't offend many people. It would be very hard for us later." Yin chuckled and shook his head. "I have never been merciful to enemies. If I wasn't strong enough, you and I would have been killed this time. They wouldn't show mercy, you know." While talking, he walked toward Evelyn's, Adams, and Masha. Evelyn's and Adams were in the critical process of their healing procedure to save Masha. Although they knew that the young man didn't come with goodwill, they couldn't be distracted. Deep resentment appeared in their eyes, but they didn't dare to pause the healing process. If they stopped the treatment, Masha would die when her life magnetic field got drained. "Well, I didn't expect that you two seniors would have a deep affection for your sister. Love is really harmful to people. I didn't expect that you would give up fighting to maintain her life magnetic field. It's touching to me." Yin frowned. He urged his power, and the dark energy in his sea of consciousness created two strange marks. The blood cloud mark that naked eyes couldn't see flew out of his glabella and disappeared into Adams and Evelyn's hearts. That energy could trigger the destructive energy to crush their hearts instantly. Yin knew that besides the soul, the heart was the weakest point of the Heavenly Eye Warriors. They were different from Yin. Even if his heart was broken, he could use his blood to create another one. When the marks entered Adams and Evelyn's, it meant that Yin had controlled their lives now. He didn't feel shameful when he attacked the other two while they couldn't be distracted. "Come over here. It's safe now. We can talk to them nicely." Yin waved at Audrey. "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.